It's 2:47 a.m., and I'm pacing the cold, sterile hallway of the emergency room, my shoes squeaking against the polished floor every time I turn. The air smells like bleach and worry, and all I can hear is the steady beep of the machines fighting to keep my son alive. His little chest rises and falls under a tangle of tubes and wires, his face pale and small against the stiff hospital pillow. An asthma attack, out of nowhere, just hit him like a freight train tonight. I can still feel the panic clawing at my throat from when I found him gasping on his bedroom floor, his tiny hands clutching at his chest like he could pull air in by force. I carried him to the car, drove through red lights, and now here we are, waiting for the doctors to tell me he's going to be okay. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely hold my phone, but I managed to tap out a text to Rachel. Lucas is in the ER. It's bad. Where are you? I stare at the screen, waiting for those three little dots to show she's typing back. They come, finally, and her reply hits me like a punch to the gut. I'm with my parents. We're boarding a flight. I told you I'm busy. Busy? Busy? My son's fighting for every breath, and she's too busy? I feel the heat rising in my chest, but I swallow it down and type again, my fingers fumbling over the keys. Our son is in the ER. I hit send and wait, staring at the glowing screen like it's my lifeline. Her next message comes quick, and it's worse than I could have imagined. He'll be fine. Don't guilt trip me. I read it once, then twice, because I can't believe the words are real. Guilt trip her? My boy's hooked up to machines, and she thinks this is about her feelings? I drop the phone onto the plastic chair next to me and press my hands against my face, trying to hold myself together. The beep of the monitor fills the silence, steady but weak, and I look through the glass at Lucas, his dark hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. He's 6 years old, and he's all I've got. Rachel's words echo in my head. He'll be fine, like she's dismissing him, dismissing us. I've always known she's selfish, but this is a new low. I pick up the phone again, thinking maybe I'll call her, scream at her, beg her to care, but what's the point? She's on a plane, sipping wine with her parents, while I'm here alone, watching our son fight. The doctor comes out then, a tired-looking woman with gray streaks in her hair, and she tells me he's stabilizing but it's still touch and go. I nod, my throat too tight to speak, and she pats my shoulder before walking away. I sit down hard, the chair creaking under me, and stare at Lucas through the window. He's so small, so fragile, and I'm terrified I might lose him tonight. Rachel doesn't even know how close it was, how close it still is. I think about her last text, those cold, careless words, and something inside me snaps. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet break, like a wire stretched too thin finally giving way. I've been carrying her, carrying us, for years, her moods, her demands, her family's endless needs, and now, when it matters most, she's not here. She doesn't want to be here. I lean my head back against the wall, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and I realize I'm done begging her to care. I'm done pretending she's the wife I need or the mother Lucas deserves. The machines keep beeping, and I keep watching, and in that lonely, endless moment, I know things are going to change. I don't know how yet, but they have to. For me. For him. Because if she can't see what matters right now, then maybe she never will. And I can't live with that anymore. I take a deep breath, pick up my phone, and turn it off. No more texts. No more waiting. Just me and Lucas, and whatever comes next. It's been 2 days since Lucas got out of the hospital, and I'm standing in our kitchen, the morning light spilling through the window onto the cracked tile floor. He's asleep on the couch in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, his breathing finally steady after that nightmare of an asthma attack. I can still hear the echo of the machines in my head, that weak little beep that kept me up all night in the ER. The doctors said it was close, too close. 1 more hour without help, and he might not have made it. I've got a cup of coffee in my hand, but it's gone cold because I can't stop staring at my phone. Not at the text from Rachel this time, those stopped after her last cold message, but at the pictures she's posting online. There she is, grinning with a cocktail in her hand, the ocean sparkling behind her. Her mom, Marjorie, is next to her, all fake tanned and big sunglasses, laughing like nothing's wrong. Her dad, Greg, is in the background, holding up a beer. They're in the Maldives, living it up, while I've been sitting by Lucas's bed, counting every breath he takes. Not a single call from her. Not a text to ask how he's doing. Nothing. I scroll through the photos, my thumb moving slow, and each one twists the knife a little deeper. She posted these while I was wiping sweat off our son's forehead, while I was praying he'd open his eyes again. I feel sick, but I can't look away. There's one of her in a bright red dress, posing by a palm tree, and the caption says, "Paradise with my favorites." Favorites. Not us. Not her kid. I drop the phone on the counter and rub my eyes, trying to push down the anger boiling up inside me. She knew he was in the hospital. She knew, and she didn't care. I grabbed the phone again, thinking maybe I'll call her, demand some kind of explanation, but I stopped myself. What's she going to say? That she needed a break? That I'm overreacting? I've heard it all before. Instead, I dial Marjorie's number. She's Rachel's mom, sure, but she's always acted like she's the boss of everyone, including me. Maybe she can get through to her daughter. The phone rings twice before she picks up, her voice sharp and annoyed. "What do you want?" She snaps, like I'm interrupting something important. I take a breath and keep my tone even. "Lucas almost died, Marjorie. He's been in the hospital. I need Rachel to call me." There's a pause, and then she laughs, a short, nasty sound that makes my skin crawl. "His life doesn't matter," she says. "He's just dramatic like his father." I freeze, the phone pressed hard against my ear. Did she really just say that? About my son? About her grandson? I can hear the clink of glasses in the background, the hum of voices, and I realize she's probably poolside, sipping something expensive while she talks to me like this. "Marjorie," I say, slow and quiet. "He couldn't breathe. He was blue when I got him to the ER." She cuts me off. "Oh, stop it. You're always making a big deal out of nothing. He's fine now, isn't he?" I don't answer. I can't. My hand tightens around the phone until my knuckles turn white, and I hang up without another word. That's it. That's the last straw. I look over at Lucas on the couch, his little chest moving up and down under the blanket, and I feel something shift inside me. They don't care, not Rachel, not Marjorie, not Greg. They're out there laughing, drinking, posting their stupid pictures, while I'm here picking up the pieces. I set the phone down and walk over to him, kneeling beside the couch. His face is peaceful now, but I can still see the fear in his eyes from that night, the way he looked at me like I was the only one who could save him. And I was. I am. I brush his hair back, my fingers shaking a little, and I make a promise to myself right then and there. They don't get to do this anymore. They don't get to treat us like we're nothing, like we're just here to fund their vacations and take their crap. I stand up, my jaw tight, and glance back at the phone. Those pictures are still there, mocking me, but they don't matter now. What matters is Lucas, and keeping him safe, and making sure he knows he's got at least one parent who'd move mountains for him. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know I'm done. Done with Rachel. Done with her family. Done pretending this is okay. I pick up my coffee, dump it in the sink, and start over. Fresh pot. Fresh start. Just me and my boy. I'm sitting in my home office tonight, the desk lamp casting a dim yellow glow over the stacks of papers and the laptop screen in front of me. Lucas is asleep down the hall, his soft snores drifting through the baby monitor I still keep on even though he's 6. The house is quiet except for the hum of the heater kicking on, and I'm staring at a spreadsheet that's been my life for the last 10 years. Every line is a piece of me, money I've earned, money I've spent, money I've handed over to keep Rachel and her family happy. I'm not just a father, not just a husband. I'm the financial head of this whole messed up household, and I've been carrying them all on my back like a fool. Rachel's car payment? Me. Greg and Marjorie's mortgage on that overpriced house they can't afford? Me. The vacation fund they dip into every time they want to jet off somewhere sunny? All me. I lean back in the chair, the leather creaking under me, and rub my face with both hands. It's been 3 days since Lucas got out of the hospital, 3 days since Rachel told me not to guilt trip her, 3 days since Marjorie said my son's life doesn't matter. I've been replaying those words in my head, over and over, and every time they hit me harder. They don't care about us. They never have. They just care about what I can give them. I look at the numbers again. Thousands of dollars every month, funneled into their hands like I'm some kind of ATM. Greg's landscaping business went under years ago, but I've been propping it up with loans he never pays back. Marjorie calls them gifts, says I owe it to them for putting up with me. Rachel just smiles and asks for more, new clothes, spa days, plane tickets. And I've done it. I've paid for it all, thinking it's what you do when you love someone. But love? This isn't love. This is them sucking me dry while my son almost died alone. I sit up straight, my heart pounding a little faster now, and I grab my phone. My fingers hover over the screen for a second, but then I start dialing. First call is to the bank. It's late, but I've got the after-hours number for emergencies, and this feels like one. A sleepy-sounding guy picks up. And I tell him I want to cancel the automatic payments on Greg and Marjorie's mortgage. You sure? He asks, like he's surprised. Yeah, I say, my voice steady. I'm sure. It takes 10 minutes, but it's done. Next, I call the car company, Rachel's shiny SUV, the one she brags about to her friends. I tell them I'm not covering the loan anymore. Let it default. Let her figure it out. The guy on the line hesitates, but he processes it. Then I log into the credit card accounts, all in my name, all tied to my credit, and I freeze them. Every single one. Rachel's got her own card on there, and so do Greg and Marjorie. They won't know until they try to use them, and I almost smile thinking about that moment. I don't stop there. I call the phone company, too, Rachel's line, her parents' lines, all on my plan. I tell them to suspend service. Non-payment, I say, even though the bill's not due yet. They don't argue. By the time I'm done, my hands aren't shaking anymore. They're steady, calm, like I've finally taken back something that's mine. I lean back again and stare at the ceiling, the weight on my chest lifting just a little. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I just clicked confirm on every call, every screen, and cut them off. It's not about revenge, not yet. It's about drawing a line. They've been living off me like parasites, always taking, never giving, and I'm done being their meal ticket. I think about Lucas, sleeping so peaceful down the hall, and I know this is for him, too. He deserves a father who's not stretched thin trying to please people who don't even care if he's alive. I've been so busy keeping them afloat that I almost lost him, almost lost the one thing that actually matters. I close the laptop and push the papers aside, my mind racing but clear for the first time in years. They're still in the Maldives, probably sipping drinks and posting more pictures, but when they get back, it's going to hit them hard. No more free rides. No more me bending over backwards to keep them happy. I stand up and walk to the doorway, glancing down the hall toward Lucas's room. The monitor crackles, and I hear him shift in his sleep, a little mumble that makes my heart ache in a good way. This is my family now, just me and him. Rachel and her parents can figure out their own mess. I turn off the office light and head to the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water. It's cold and sharp going down, and I feel awake, alive, like I've finally stopped drowning. I don't know what they'll say when they realize what I've done, but I don't care. Let them yell. Let them beg. I'm not picking up the pieces for them anymore. I've got my own to hold together, and I'm starting right here, right now, with my son. It's late afternoon, and I'm standing in the kitchen, stirring a pot of macaroni and cheese while Lucas sits on the couch watching cartoons. The TV's blaring some silly song about a dancing dog, and he's giggling, his legs kicking under the blanket I draped over him. It's been a week since the hospital, and he's finally starting to look like himself again, color in his cheeks, a spark in his eyes. I'm keeping him home from school a couple more days, just to be safe, and it feels good to have him close. The house smells like butter and melted cheddar, and for a minute, it's peaceful. Then my phone starts buzzing on the counter, over and over, like a wasp trapped in a jar. I glance at it and see Rachel's name flashing, missed call after missed call. I don't pick up. I already know what it's about. They landed this morning, back from their Maldives trip, and I didn't go to the airport to get them. I can picture them now, standing outside the terminal with their fancy suitcases piled up, looking around like lost kids waiting for someone to save them. But I'm not their savior anymore. I turn the stove off and grab a bowl for Lucas, scooping the macaroni in while the phone keeps going. 13 missed calls now, and then it switches to voicemails. I set the bowl on the coffee table in front of him and say, "Eat up, buddy. Careful, it's hot." He grins at me, his front tooth missing, and digs in with a spoon. I sit down next to him, propping my feet on the ottoman, and finally pick up the phone to listen. The first voicemail starts with Rachel's voice, sharp and irritated. "Where are you? We're at the airport, and you're not here. What's going on?" I hit next. The second one's louder. The credit card's not working. I tried to get a cab, and it got declined. "Fix this." By the fifth one, she's yelling, "My phone's about to get cut off. Why isn't the bill paid? Do you know how embarrassing this is?" I keep listening, one after another, and not a single message asks about Lucas. Not one. 13 voicemails, all about her, her parents, their problems, locked cards, no cash, no ride. I lean my head back against the couch, the cartoon dog still singing in the background, and I feel a strange calm settle over me. She's not even pretending to care anymore. I look at Lucas, his cheeks puffed out with macaroni, and I ruffle his hair. "Good, huh?" I ask. He nods, his mouth full, and I smile. This is what matters. Him here safe. Not Rachel stranded at the airport. Not Marjorie whining about her phone. Not Greg fumbling with a dead credit card. I delete the voicemails without replying and set the phone face down on the armrest. They'll figure it out. They've got each other, after all. Rachel, Marjorie, Greg, the perfect little trio. Let them call a friend or pawn a watch or whatever it is people do when they've spent years living off someone else's dime. I get up and grab a bowl for myself, sitting back down next to Lucas. The cartoon switches to a chase scene, and he laughs, pointing at the screen. Look, Dad, he's gonna fall. I chuckle and take a bite, the cheese warm and comforting. My phone buzzes again, text this time. I don't even flip it over to check. I know it's her, probably typing out more demands, more complaints. I let it sit there, ignored, and focus on Lucas instead. What's the dog gonna do next? I ask, and he launches into a big story about how the dog's going to build a rocket ship. I nod along, letting his voice fill the room, drowning out the buzzing. Hours pass like that, us on the couch, eating, watching, talking. The sun dips low outside, painting the walls orange, and I realize I haven't thought about Rachel in a while. She's out there somewhere, mad as hell, but I'm here, and it's quiet in a way it hasn't been for years. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel sorry. I just feel done. Lucas yawns, his head drooping against my shoulder, and I pull the blanket up over him. Time for bed soon, champ, I say, and he mumbles something about the dog. I carry him to his room, tucking him in, and then head back to the living room. The phone's still there, silent now, and I pick it up. One last text from Rachel. You're going to regret this. I read it, then delete it, and turn the TV off. Regret? No. I regret waiting this long to see her for who she is. I regret thinking I could buy her love or her parents' respect with money and patience. But this? Letting them fend for themselves while I take care of my son? This feels right. I lock the door, turn off the lights, and head to bed. Tomorrow's a new day, and it's just me and Lucas now. That's all I need. It's late morning, and I'm standing on the front porch, the wooden boards creaking under my boots as I hear the car pull up. The air's crisp, carrying that sharp fall smell of leaves and damp earth, and I've got my hands shoved in my jacket pockets to keep them still. Lucas is inside, playing with his toy cars on the living room rug, the little vroom vroom sounds drifting out through the screen door. I knew this was coming, Rachel and Marjorie showing up, but it still hits me like a brick when I see them storming up the walkway. Rachel's got her hair pulled back tight, her face all sharp angles and fury, and Marjorie's right behind her, clutching her purse like it's a weapon. They don't knock. Rachel just barges in, the door slamming against the wall, and yells, "You embarrassed us." Her voice cuts through the quiet house, and I feel Lucas go still inside, the toy cars stopping mid-race. Marjorie chimes in, her tone high and shrill. "You humiliated us in front of our friends." I take a slow breath, keeping my eyes on them, and step inside after them, closing the door soft so it doesn't scare Lucas more. They're standing in the living room now, Rachel pacing like a caged animal, Marjorie glaring at me with her arms crossed. "Do you have any idea what it was like?" Rachel snaps, her hands flying as she talks. "Stranded at the airport, cards declined. Phone's dead, everyone's staring at us like we're broke." I don't say anything yet. I just walk over to the coffee table, pick up the hospital bracelet Lucas wore, thin, white, with his name printed in tiny black letters, and hold it out to her. "This is from the ER, I say, my voice low and steady. The night he almost stopped breathing." She doesn't even glance at it. She swats the air like I'm waving a fly away and keeps going. "You overreacted," she says, her eyes flashing. "We needed that trip. We needed a break." I feel the words sink in, heavy and cold, and I lower my hand, the bracelet dangling between my fingers. A break? From what? From being a mom? From giving a damn about our kid? I look at her, really look at her, and it's like I'm seeing her for the first time, someone who'd rather sip cocktails than sit by her son's bed. Marjorie steps forward then, pointing a bony finger at me. "You think you're some big hero, cutting us off? You're selfish, that's what you are. We were counting on you." I set the bracelet down on the table, slow and careful, and turned to her. "Counting on me for what?" "To pay for your vacations while Lucas was hooked up to machines." My voice stays calm, but there's an edge to it now, sharp enough to make her flinch. Rachel stops pacing and spins on me. "He's fine now, isn't he? You're making this into some big drama when it's not." I shake my head, almost laughing, but it's not funny, it's sad. He's fine because I got him to the hospital in time. Because I was there. Where were you? She opens her mouth, then closes it, her cheeks going red. Marjorie jumps in again, her voice rising. Don't you dare talk to her like that. We deserve better than this. I look between them, Rachel fuming, Marjorie puffed up like she's about to explode, and I feel something settle inside me. They're not here to check on Lucas. They're not here to say sorry. They're here because I turned off the money tap, and that's all they care about. I glance through the doorway at Lucas, who's peeking around the corner now, his eyes wide and worried. Go back to your cars, buddy, I say, keeping my tone soft. Everything's okay. He nods and disappears, and I turn back to them. You need to leave, I say, pointing at the door. Rachel laughs, short and bitter. What, you're kicking us out? This is my house too. I step closer, my voice dropping. Not anymore. I filed for separation last night. Papers are with my lawyer. You'll get them soon. Her face goes slack, like I slapped her, and Marjorie gasps, clutching her chest. You can't do that, she sputters. I already did, I say, and I mean it. I'm done arguing, done explaining. I walk to the door and hold it open, the cool air rushing in. Go. Rachel stares at me, her mouth working like she's trying to find words, but nothing comes out. Marjorie grabs her arm, muttering something about lawyers and revenge, and they stumble out, their heels clicking on the porch. I shut the door behind them, lock it, and lean against it for a second, letting out a long breath. The house is quiet again, just the faint sound of Lucas's cars rolling across the rug. I walk over and sit down next to him, picking up a blue truck. Want a race? I ask, and he grins, nodding fast. We play, the little engines roaring between us, and I feel the weight of the morning start to lift. They can yell all they want. They can hate me, but I'm not going back. Not to that life, not to that lie. It's me and Lucas now, and I'll fight for him with everything I've got. I'm sitting in Silas Burns' office, the air thick with the smell of old leather and coffee, my hands resting on my knees as I watch him flip through a stack of papers. It's late afternoon, and the light's fading outside, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Silas has been my friend since high school, the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back, but also knows how to play hardball when it counts. Now he's my lawyer, and he's helping me dig through the mess Rachel and her family left behind. The desk between us is covered with documents, bank statements, transfer records, receipts, every dime I've poured into them over the years laid out like a map of my stupidity. I lean forward, pointing at a line on the spreadsheet he's holding. That's the payment to Greg's business last month, I say, my voice steady but tired. $5,000 to cover his equipment lease. He never paid me back. Silas nods, his pen scratching a note in the margin. And this one? He asks, tapping another line. Venmo to Delia, Rachel's sister. $200. Says, girls' night. I shake my head, rubbing my temples. Yeah, that's my money too. Rachel used my account for it. Happens all the time. He sets the paper down and leans back in his chair, his gray eyes studying me over his glasses. You've been funding a whole ecosystem here, man. Car payments, mortgage, vacations, random cash to her sister. How long you been doing this? I shrug, feeling the weight of it all pressed down on me. Since we got married, pretty much. 10 years. I thought it was normal, you know? Taking care of family. Silas snorts, a dry little sound. Family doesn't treat you like a bank and then ditch you when your kid's dying. He's right, and it stings, but I don't argue. I just sit there, staring at the pile of proof, every transfer to Greg's failing landscaping gig, every credit card swipe for Marjorie's spa days, every check I wrote to keep them afloat. Silas picks up another folder and slides it over to me. This is the joint account stuff. You're the primary on everything: checking, savings, investments. She's got access, but it's all in your name. I open it, scanning the numbers. Hundreds of thousands, built up from my job, my overtime, my savings. Rachel spent it like water, but I earned it. What can we do with this? I ask, looking up at him. He leans forward, his voice dropping low. We move it. All of it. Set up a trust for Lucas, private, untouchable. She can't contest what's not in the joint pot anymore. I nod, slow at first, then faster. Yeah, let's do that. He grins, just a flicker, and starts pulling forms from a drawer. Good. We'll file it today. And one more thing, don't fight fire with fire here. Fight it with silence and strategy. Let her scream, let her parents throw tantrums. You stay quiet, keep your head down, and we'll bury them with this paper trail. I take a deep breath, feeling a spark of something like hope. Silence and strategy. I can do that. We spend the next hour signing papers, moving money, locking it all down. Every click of the pen feels like I'm taking a piece of myself back. My work, my future, my son's future. By the time we're done, the trust is set, and Lucas's name is on it, not mine, not hers. It's his now, safe from her hands. I lean back in the chair, my shoulders loosening a little. What about the separation? I ask. Silas stacks the folders neat and looks at me. Filed yesterday, like you said. She'll get served soon. With this, he taps the financial records. She's got no leg to stand on. Emotional abandonment, negligence, plus the money angle? You're solid. I nod, staring at the desk. Solid. I haven't felt solid in years, but this feels real. I think about Rachel barging in yesterday, yelling about embarrassment, and Marjorie wagging her finger like I owe them something. They don't know what's coming. They think I'm still the pushover who'll cave if they yell loud enough. But I'm not that guy anymore. I stand up, shaking Silas's hand. Thanks, man. I mean it. He grips my hand firm and says, you're doing the right thing. For you, for Lucas. I leave the office, stepping out into the cool evening air, my breath fogging in front of me. The street's quiet, just a few cars rolling by, and I climb into my truck, resting my hands on the wheel. I don't turn the key yet. I just sit there, letting it sink in. The money's gone from their reach. The trust is locked. The separation's moving. I've been quiet, like Silas said, but I've been busy too. I think about Lucas at home, probably waiting for me to make dinner, and I smile a little. He's why I'm doing this. Not for revenge, not to prove a point, just to protect him. I start the engine and pull out, the headlights cutting through the dusk. Rachel's going to lose it when she finds out, and her parents will too, but I don't care. Let them rage. I've got my son, my plan, and a stack of papers that say I'm not their doormat anymore. That's enough for now. It's Sunday morning, and I'm sitting at a long table in a busy diner, the kind with sticky menus and waitresses who call you Han. The air smells like pancakes and bacon, and there's a low hum of chatter around me, families laughing, forks clinking on plates. Rachel's family insisted on this brunch, said we needed to talk things through, and I only agreed because I wanted to see their faces when it all came crashing down. I'm late on purpose, walking in 15 minutes after the time they set, my boots scuffing the tiled floor as I spot them across the room. Rachel's there, her arms crossed tight, her lips pressed into a thin line. Marjorie's next to her, fussing with her napkin, and Greg's at the head of the table, his face red like he's already mad. They've got plates of food in front of them, eggs, toast, a stack of waffles, and I can tell they've been here a while, waiting for me to show up. I slide into the empty chair across from Rachel, not saying a word, just nodding at them like it's any other day. Marjorie starts in right away, her voice loud enough to turn heads at the next table. You've got some nerve, keeping us waiting like this, she says, pointing her fork at me. We're here to fix this mess you made. I lean back in my seat, hands resting on my thighs, and let her talk. Greg jumps in next, his voice gruff. Yeah, what's with the money, huh? Cards don't work, phones are off, how are we supposed to live? I don't answer yet. I just watch them, letting the complaints pile up. Rachel's staring at me, her eyes narrow, and finally she snaps. Say something. You owe us an explanation. Before I can open my mouth, the waiter comes over, a young guy with a nervous smile, holding the bill. Sir, he says to Greg, your card got declined. Do you have another one? Greg's face goes from red to purple, and he fumbles in his wallet, pulling out another card, my card, one I froze last week. He hands it over, and the waiter runs it, comes back a minute later shaking his head. That one's no good either. Marjorie slams her hand on the table, making the plates rattle. This is ridiculous, she yells, glaring at the waiter like it's his fault. Do your job. The poor kid stammers an apology and scurries off, and that's when I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table. You're not my responsibility anymore, I say, my voice calm and clear. They all freeze, staring at me like I just spoke a different language. Rachel blinks fast, her mouth opening. What's that supposed to mean? I look her dead in the eye, keeping my tone even. You said my son didn't matter. Neither do you. It's like the air gets sucked out of the room. Greg sputters, you can't just. But I cut him off by standing up, my chair scraping loud against the floor. I already did, I say, and I turn to walk out. They don't let it in there, though. I hear them scrambling after me, their voices rising as I push through the diner doors into the parking lot. You don't get to walk away like this. Rachel shouts, her heels clicking fast on the pavement. Marjorie's right behind her, yelling, we'll sue you. You'll regret this. I stop by my truck, turning to face them, the cool air hitting my face. Greg's huffing, trying to keep up, his hands balled into fists. You think you can cut us off and just leave? He growls. I look at them. Rachel's furious, Marjorie's practically shaking, Greg's ready to swing, and I feel nothing. No anger, no guilt, just a quiet certainty. Yeah, I say, simple as that. I can. And I am. I open the truck door, but Rachel grabs my arm, her nails digging in. This isn't over, she hisses. I pull free, gentle but firm, and meet her eyes one last time. It is for me. I climb in, shut the door, and start the engine, watching them in the rear view as I pull out. They're still standing there, yelling, waving their arms, but I don't stop. The diner fades behind me, and I crank the radio, letting some old rock song fill the cab. My hands are steady on the wheel, my chest lighter than it's been in years. I think about Lucas at home, probably building one of his car tracks across the living room, and I smile a little. They wanted a public scene, thought they could guilt me into backing down in front of everyone. But I'm not the one who looked small today. They did, scrambling over a declined card, shouting in a diner like spoiled kids. I don't need to fight them anymore. I've already won, not with fists or words, but with the truth. They don't matter to me, and they never will again. I turn onto the highway, the sun dipping low ahead, and head home to my boy. That's where I belong. I'm sitting in a courtroom, the wooden bench hard under me, my hands folded in my lap as I watch the judge flip through a thick stack of papers. It's a gray morning, the kind where the light barely makes it through the tall windows, and the room smells like dust and old coffee. Rachel's across the aisle, her lawyer next to her, whispering something in her ear. She's dressed up, hair perfect, like she's trying to play the part of the wronged wife, but her eyes keep darting to me, sharp and nervous. Marjorie's behind her in the gallery, sitting stiff, her face pale for once, no yelling, no pointing, just silence. I can feel the weight of the last few months in my bones, the hospital, the airport, the brunch, but I'm calm today, steady. Silas is beside me, his briefcase open on the table, every document we've built ready to go. This is it, the divorce hearing. Rachel contested the separation, thought she'd walk away with half of everything, maybe more. She didn't know what I had waiting. The judge, an older guy with a tired voice, looks up and says, "Let's start with the financials." Silas stands, smooth and confident, and hands over the first folder. Your Honor, my client has been the sole provider for the household and extended family for over a decade. These records show payments to the respondent's parents' mortgage, her car, their vacations, hundreds of thousands, all from his income. The judge nods, scanning the pages, and I see Rachel shift in her seat, her fingers twisting together. Silas keeps going. We've also got evidence of financial negligence, joint accounts drained for personal use by Mrs. Rachel, transfers to her sister, funding her father's failed business, all without my client's consent. He slides another stack across, and the judge takes it, his brow creasing as he reads. I lean back a little, watching it unfold. Every late night in Silas's office, every bank statement we dug up, it's all here, laid out like a story they can't rewrite. Then Silas drops the big one. And this, Your Honor, proof of emotional abandonment. Text messages from the night their son was in the ER, nearly dying from an asthma attack. Mrs. Rachel refused to return, told my client not to guilt trip her while she vacationed with her parents. He hands over my phone records, the text printed out clear as day. I feel a pang in my chest remembering that night, but I push it down. The judge reads them slow, his face hardening, and Rachel's lawyer jumps up, stammering. Objection, Your Honor. This is, contextual. She was under stress. The judge waves him off. Sit down. I'll decide what's relevant. I glance at Rachel, and she's staring at the table now, her jaw tight. Marjorie's hand grips the bench in front of her, knuckles white. Silas isn't done. Finally, custody. My client has been the primary caregiver, especially during the child's recent medical emergency. Mrs. Rachel has shown no interest, zero contact since the separation filing, no calls to check on the boy. He sets down the last file, a thin one, just hospital records and my notes from the last few weeks. The judge looks at me, then at Rachel, and asks, Mrs. Rachel, anything to add? Her lawyer stands again, smoother this time. Your Honor, my client deserves her share of the marital assets. She's been a homemaker, supported the family. Silas cuts in, calm but firm. Supported how? By spending his money while he raised their son alone. The judge raises a hand, silencing them both, and flips through the papers again. I sit there, my heart steady, watching him. I don't need to say a word. Silas has it covered, and the truth's all there in black and white. After what feels like forever, the judge clears his throat. I've seen enough. Full custody to the father. Assets remain under his control, given the trust established for the child and the respondent's financial misconduct. No alimony. Mrs. Rachel, you'll need to address the debts in your name. He bangs the gavel, and it's over. Rachel's lawyer slumps, whispering to her, but she doesn't move, just stares ahead, speechless. Marjorie's frozen, her mouth open like she can't believe it. I stand up slow, shaking Silas's hand. Told you, he mutters, a small grin tugging at his lips. Silence and strategy. I nod, feeling the tension drain out of me. We walk out, leaving them behind, and the hallway's quiet, just the echo of our steps. I think about Lucas at home with my sister June, probably eating cookies she snuck him, and I feel lighter than I have in years. Rachel thought she'd win, thought she could lean on charm and excuses, but she left with nothing but the mess she made. The judge saw it, her neglect, her greed, all of it. I climb into my truck outside, the cold air biting my face, and start the engine. No half and half, no compromise. Lucas is mine, the money's safe, and they're out of my life. I don't gloat, don't cheer, just drive home, the road stretching out ahead, clear and open. It's done. We're free. I'm standing in the kitchen of our new place, a small house with creaky floors and windows that let in the morning sun just right. It's been a month since the divorce, and I'm flipping pancakes on a griddle, the smell of batter and syrup filling the air. Lucas is at the table behind me, his legs swinging under the chair, crayons scattered around him as he draws a picture of a rocket ship. Make mine with extra chocolate chips, Dad. He calls out, his voice bright and loud, and I grin, tossing a handful into the batter. This place isn't fancy, no big garage, no extra rooms for stuff we don't need, but it's warm, cozy, ours. We moved in 2 weeks ago, just me and him, and it's like we finally found our footing. I slide a pancake onto a plate and set it in front of him, ruffling his hair. There you go, champ. Eat up. He digs in, chocolate smeared on his chin, and I sit across from him with my own stack, watching him smile. That smile, it's bigger now, easier, like he's not carrying something heavy anymore. I feel it too, the quiet peace of starting over. The old house was full of Rachel's things, her family's demands, their shadows in every corner. Here, it's just us, and it's enough. I've switched to working remotely, trading the office for a desk in the living room so I can be around more. No more late nights, no more rushing home to a wife who didn't care. I'm here for school drop-offs, for bedtime stories, for moments like this, pancakes and crayons on a Saturday morning. The doorbell rings, and I get up, wiping my hands on a towel. It's June, my sister, and her husband Miles, right on time to help with Lucas's school pickup schedule. I open the door, and June's already talking, her voice warm and fast. Hey, big brother, brought coffee. She holds up a tray of cups, and Miles trails behind her, carrying a bag of groceries. Thought you might need some stuff for the fridge, he says, nodding at me. I step aside to let them in, and Lucas yells, and June, from the table, waving his sticky hands. She laughs and heads over, planting a kiss on his forehead. Look at you, all chocolatey. Save some for me, okay. Miles sets the bag on the counter, and we start unpacking milk, bread, apples, a pack of cookies June probably threw in for Lucas. They've been a lifeline since the move, stepping in when I need a hand, no questions asked. How's the new gig going? Miles asks, leaning against the counter as I pour coffee. Good, I say, handing him a cup. Boss let me go fully remote. Means I'm around for him. I nod toward Lucas, who's showing June his drawing now, explaining how the rocket's going to Mars. She nods seriously, asking him about the engines, and I feel a swell of gratitude. This is family, not the kind built on obligation or money, but on love, the real stuff. We sit around the table, all of us, sipping coffee and eating pancakes, and it's easy, natural. June tells a story about her dog chewing up Miles's slippers, and Lucas giggles so hard he nearly spills his juice. I lean back in my chair, listening, and realize I don't need revenge anymore. I used to think about Rachel and her parents tripping over themselves, losing everything, and it'd give me a bitter kind of satisfaction. But now, I've got this. Lucas's laugh, June's chatter, Miles's quiet grin, and it's better than any payback. The day rolls on like that, simple and good. After June and Miles head out, Promising to pick Lucas up from school Monday, I take him to the backyard. It's small, just a patch of grass and a rickety swing set the last owners left behind, but he loves it. I push him on the swing, his little legs kicking high, and he yells, "Higher, Dad." I laugh and push harder, the chains creaking. The sun's dipping low, painting the sky orange, and I feel steady, grounded. This is rebuilding piece by piece, day by day. No big gestures, just us figuring it out together. Later, we're back inside, and I'm tucking him into bed, his rocket drawing taped to the wall above his pillow. "Night, buddy," I say, smoothing the blanket over him. He yawns, his eyes half closed. "Night, Dad. Love you." My throat tightens, and I kiss his forehead. "Love you too." I turn off the light and step into the hall, leaving the door cracked. The house is quiet now, just the hum of the fridge, and I sit on the couch, staring at the empty coffee cups on the table. This is it, our new normal. It's not perfect, but it's real, and it's mine. I don't need anything else. Just him, and this little life we're making, one pancake at a time. It's Lucas's 7th birthday today, and I'm in the kitchen, blowing up balloons until my cheeks hurt, the living room a mess of streamers and wrapping paper. The sun's pouring through the window, bright and warm, and I can hear him laughing outside with June's kids, chasing each other around the backyard swing set. The house smells like chocolate cake. I baked it myself, a lopsided thing with too much frosting, but he won't care. It's been a year since the divorce, a year since I cut Rachel and her family out of our lives, and today feels like a milestone, a marker of how far we've come. The table's piled with presents, new toy cars, a Lego set, a soccer ball for Miles, and I'm setting out paper plates when my phone buzzes on the counter. I glance at it, expecting June with some last-minute update, but it's Rachel. My stomach tightens, just a little, as I read her message. "Can I see him today?" I stare at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. It's the first time she's reached out in months, maybe longer. No calls, no texts, nothing since the courtroom, and now this. On his birthday, like she's entitled to pop back in. I set the phone down and lean against the counter, my hands gripping the edge. Part of me wants to ignore it, let it sit there unanswered, but I think about Lucas, about what he'd want. He's the one who matters here, not me, not her. I pick the phone up again and walk outside, the screen door banging shut behind me. The kids are still running around, grass sticking to their shoes, and Lucas spots me, waving. "Dad, look, I'm winning," he yells, his face all sweaty and happy. I smile and wave back, then hold up the phone. "Hey, bud, come here a sec." He jogs over, breathing hard, and I kneel down to his level, the grass cool under my knee. "Your mom texted," I say, keeping my voice even. "She wants to know if she can see you today." His grin fades a little, and he looks at the phone in my hand, then back at me. His eyes, big and brown, just like hers, go quiet, like he's thinking hard. "Do I have to?" he asks, his voice small. I shake my head, quick and firm. "No. It's your day. You decide." He bites his lip, glancing at the ground, then up at me again. "She wasn't here when I was sick," he says, almost a whisper. "She didn't come." I nod, my chest aching, but I don't push him. "That's right. She made her choice back then." He looks at the phone one more time, then shakes his head, slow but sure. "I don't want to. I just want you and Aunt June and everybody here." I pull him into a hug, his little arms wrapping around my neck, and I feel the tension slip away. "Okay," I say, my voice soft against his hair. "That's what we'll do." He pulls back, smiling again, and runs off to join the other kids, his laugh cutting through the air. I stand up, dusting off my jeans, and head back inside. The phone's still in my hand, Rachel's text glowing on the screen. I type back, short and simple. "Ask him yourself." Then I wait, knowing she won't call, won't push it. She never does. A minute later, I block her number, my thumb pressing the button with no hesitation. It's done. She had her chance. Years of chances, and she threw them away. I'm not mad anymore, not hurt. I'm just finished. The party kicks off soon after that. June and Miles show up with their kids, a couple neighbors drop by, and the house fills with noise and chaos. Lucas tears into his presents, paper flying everywhere, and I snap pictures, grinning like an idiot. The cake's a hit, even if it leans to one side, and we sing happy birthday so loud the windows rattle. He blows out the candles, all 7, and I catch his eye across the table, winking at him. This is what I chose him, this life, this messy, loud, Perfect day. Later, after everyone's gone and the house is quiet again, I'm cleaning up, stuffing wrapping paper into a trash bag. Lucas is on the couch, half asleep with a new car in his hand, the TV flickering with some cartoon he's not really watching. I sit next to him, pulling a blanket over his legs, and he mumbles, "Best birthday ever, Dad." I smile, my throat tight. "Yeah, me too." I lean back, the room settling around us, and I think about Rachel one last time, not with anger, but with a kind of finality. She's gone, out of our story, and we're better for it. I made my choice too, to protect what matters, always, and it's right here, curled up next to me, breathing soft and steady. That's all I need. Always will be. The snow was up to my knees, thick and heavy, clinging to my boots like it wanted to drag me down into the earth. I'd just finished a brutal late-night shift at the warehouse, my fingers numb from stacking boxes in the freezing loading bay, my back aching from hours of bending and lifting. The blizzard was the worst we'd had in 10 years, roads closed, power flickering, the kind of storm that makes you wonder if the world's ending. All I wanted was to get home, kick off my soggy boots, and collapse into bed next to Mira, my wife of 6 years. I'd been dreaming about the warmth of our little house the whole drive back, windshield wipers slapping against the ice, the heater barely keeping me from shivering. But when I got there, everything changed. I stepped out of the truck, the wind biting at my face, and trudged up to the front door. My key wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, thinking it was frozen, but then I saw the deadbolt was locked from the inside. That's when I looked up and saw her, Mira, through the living room window, smirking like she'd just won something. She wasn't alone. Her brother Zane was there, holding up a beer, his loud voice cutting through the glass. "Freeze to death, useless idiot." Mira laughed, sharp and mean, and slapped his hand in a high five. Behind them, her parents, Gordon and Beth, stood watching, their grins wide and smug, like I was some kind of joke they'd all planned. My breath puffed out in shallow clouds, the cold sinking deeper into my bones, but it wasn't the weather breaking me, it was them. My own family, the people I'd built a life with, locking me out and laughing about it. I stood there, staring, my hands shaking not just from the chill, but from the hurt twisting in my chest. I could have shouted. I could have banged on the door until my fists bled. But what would that get me? More laughs? More insults? No. I turned around, the snow crunching under my boots, and walked to the backyard where Mark, our golden retriever, was huddled by the shed. His big brown eyes looked up at me, confused but trusting, his tail wagging slow like he knew something was wrong. I unhooked his leash from the post, grabbed his blanket from the porch, and started walking. The wind howled, stinging my eyes, but I didn't look back. Not once. My house, our house, was behind me, glowing warm and bright, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. It hadn't for a while, I realized. Maybe not ever. Mark pressed close to my leg as we moved through the storm, his fur dusted with snow, and I kept my head down, focusing on each step. I didn't know where I was going yet, just away. Away from the smirks, the beer, the betrayal. My breath was ragged, my lungs burning from the icy air, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Every time I blinked, I saw Myra's face, that laugh echoing in my head, and it pushed me forward. She didn't even come to the door, didn't call out, didn't care. And Zane, God, I'd always known he was a jerk, but this was next level. Her parents, too, standing there like it was some family game night, cheering her on while I froze. I'd spent years trying to fit into their world, working extra shifts to keep up with their expectations, biting my tongue when they made their little digs about my job, my truck, my simple life. And for what? To be left out here like trash? Mark whimpered beside me, and I reached down to scratch his ears, my gloves stiff with frost. "It's okay, buddy," I muttered, though my voice cracked. "We're done here." The snow kept falling, thicker now, blanketing the street in white, and I felt like I was disappearing with it. Maybe that's what they wanted, Mira, Zane, all of them, to erase me. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me beg. I tightened my grip on Mark's leash and kept walking, the cold wrapping around me like a second skin, my mind spinning with questions I didn't have answers to. Why'd she do it? When did she stop caring? How long had they been planning this? I didn't know. All I knew was the ache in my chest and the dog at my side. We passed the corner store, its lights dim through the storm, and I thought about the life I'd built, the one I thought we'd built together. 6 years of dinners, vacations, late-night talks. Was it all fake? My legs were heavy, my jeans soaked through, but I didn't stop. Mark stayed with me, loyal as ever, and that was enough for now. The house faded into the distance, swallowed by the blizzard, and with it went the man I'd been, the one who'd let this happen. I wasn't sure who I'd be tomorrow, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not to them. Not to that. The snow stung my face, but I welcomed it. It was honest, at least. Cold, brutal, but honest. And right then, that's all I needed. Me and Mark, we'd figure it out. One step at a time. The snow didn't let up as I trudged through the streets, Mark trotting beside me, his paws leaving little prints in the white mess. My boots were soaked, my toes numb, and every breath felt like swallowing glass. But I couldn't stop moving. Not yet. The house was behind me now, out of sight, and with every step, it felt more like a memory I didn't want to keep. I didn't have a plan, just this burning need to get away, to put distance between me and Myra's smirk, Zane's laugh, her parents' smug faces. The wind howled, pushing against me, but I leaned into it, my hands stuffed deep in my pockets. Mark's leash looped around my wrist. I didn't know where we were going until I saw the faint glow of neon ahead. Lou's Diner, a 24-hour joint I'd passed 100 times, but never stopped at. It looked warm, alive, the kind of place that didn't care who you were as long as you didn't make trouble. I pushed the door open, a bell jingling above me, and stepped inside, Mark shaking snow off his fur at my feet. The heat hit me first, thawing my face, making my nose run. The place smelled like coffee and grease, and the hum of a jukebox played some old country song I didn't recognize. A waitress, Rosie, her name tag said, looked up from wiping the counter. She had tired eyes but a soft smile, like she'd seen guys like me before. "Rough night?" she asked, glancing at Mark. I nodded, my throat too tight to talk yet. "Sit anywhere," she said. "Dog's fine as long as he behaves." I slid into a booth by the window, Mark curling up under the table, his wet fur brushing my leg. Rosie brought me a coffee without asking, black and steaming, and set it down with a quiet, "On the house." I mumbled a thanks, wrapping my hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. I didn't have much cash, just a crumpled 10 in my wallet, but she didn't seem to care. She let me sit there, sipping slow, staring out at the storm as it raged on. Hours passed, I think. I lost track. My mind kept replaying that moment at the window, Myra's laugh, Zane's voice, the way they all just watched me freeze. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I'd given her everything, my time, my money, my trust, and she'd thrown it back in my face like it was nothing. Mark nudged my knee, and I scratched his head, grateful for him. He didn't judge, didn't laugh. He just stayed. Around 3 in the morning, I pulled out my phone, battery at 8%, and called Leo. He's my oldest friend, the kind of guy who'd drop anything if you needed him. His voice was groggy when he answered. "Dude, you okay?" "It's late." I told him everything, my words spilling out fast. The shift, the snow, the lockout, the laughter. He didn't interrupt, just listened. "Stay there," he said when I finished. "I'm coming." 20 minutes later, his beat-up Ford rolled into the lot, headlights cutting through the blizzard. I paid Rosie with my 10, thanked her again, and climbed in with Mark. Leo didn't ask a million questions, just drove, the heater blasting, the silence comfortable. His place was small, a one-bedroom apartment with a couch that sagged in the middle, but it felt safer than my own house ever had. He tossed me a blanket and a pillow, said, "Crash here as long as you need." I thanked him, my voice rough, and he just nodded like it was nothing. For 2 days, I went ghost. No social media, no texts, no calls. My phone died that first night, and I didn't bother charging it. It was a relief, honestly, cutting off the world, letting it spin without me. Mark stayed close, sleeping at my feet, and Leo kept me fed with takeout and bad jokes. I didn't talk much, just sat there, thinking. About Mira. About how I'd missed the signs. The way she'd started pulling away, spending more time with her family, brushing me off when I asked what was wrong. I thought it was stress, maybe me working too much. But now it felt like a setup. On the 3rd day, I plugged my phone in, watched it buzz to life. 49 messages. I scrolled through them slow, my stomach twisting. The first ones were from Mira, angry, sharp. "Where are you? You're being dramatic. Stop acting like a kid." Then Zane, "Man up, loser." Even Beth chimed in, "You're embarrassing yourself." But as I kept going, they changed. Myra's tone shifted, desperate now, please come home. I'm sorry, okay? Just tell me you're safe. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to type back, to unload everything, how she'd gutted me, how they all had. But what would that do? They'd twist it, make me the bad guy again. No. I set the phone down, let it buzz with a few more texts I didn't read. Leo walked in, handed me a beer. You good? He asked. I shrugged. Getting there. He didn't push. That night, I lay on his couch, Mark snoring beside me, the storm finally quiet outside. Those messages kept running through my head, angry, then begging. They wanted me back, but not because they cared. They wanted the old me, the guy who'd take it, who'd come running when they snapped their fingers. That guy? He was gone. I wasn't sure who I was now, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to that house, that life. Not after what they'd done. I took a sip of the beer, cold and bitter, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd figure out the next step. For now, I just needed to breathe. Me and Mark, we'd be okay. We had to be. I woke up on Leo's couch with a crick in my neck and Mark's big head resting on my chest, his warm breath puffing against my shirt. The apartment smelled like coffee. Leo was already up, clattering around in the kitchen, probably burning toast again. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, weak and pale, the storm finally over. My phone sat on the coffee table, still buzzing every few minutes with texts I didn't want to read. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fog in my head. Yesterday felt like a bad dream. Mira locking me out, her family laughing, me walking away with nothing but my dog and a dead phone. But it wasn't a dream. It was real, and now I had to figure out what came next. Leo poked his head in, holding a mug. You look like crap, he said, grinning. Coffee. I nodded, sitting up slow, Mark sliding off me with a lazy groan. Thanks, man. For everything. He waved it off, handing me the mug. You do the same. What's the plan today? I didn't have one, not really, but I knew I couldn't just sit here forever. Need to get my stuff together, I said. Clothes, phone, some cash. Can't keep borrowing your socks. Leo laughed. They're yours as long as you need, Em. But yeah, let's get you sorted. He lent me a pair of jeans and a hoodie, both a little tight, but better than my snow-soaked stuff from the night before. We drove to a cheap phone store first, Mark waiting in the truck, his nose pressed to the window. I got a basic model, nothing fancy, just enough to keep in touch and start rebuilding. I kept my old phone, though, its cracked screen and dead battery tucked in my pocket. Something told me I'd need it later, proof of what happened that night. Back at Leo's, I powered it up, ignoring the flood of messages, and checked our joint bank account instead. My stomach dropped. It was almost empty, $9, $342 gone, siphoned off in small chunks over months. Transfers I didn't recognize, all to an account with a number I'd never seen. Myra's name was on every one. My hands shook as I scrolled through the history. $200 here, $500 there, little bites adding up to a fortune. I'd been working overtime, skipping lunches to save cash, and she'd been bleeding me dry. For what? Beers with Zane? Her parents' fancy dinners? I wanted to smash something, but I just sat there, staring, my jaw tight. Leo leaned over. What's up? I showed him. He whistled low. That's messed up, man. You gotta lock that down. He was right. I called the bank, put a freeze on the account, my voice steady even though I felt like yelling. Then I drove to the branch where we kept our safety deposit box. Mark stayed in the truck again, chewing on an old rope toy Leo had found. Inside, I pulled out everything. Our marriage certificate, my passport, the deed to the house, tax records. I stuffed them in a folder, my hands moving fast, like I was racing against something I couldn't see. The clerk watched me, her eyebrows raised, but I didn't explain. I didn't know anyone that. Next stop was work. I called Harper from HR on the new phone, told her I needed a few days off. She didn't pry, just said, take care of yourself, her voice kind but firm. I liked Harper, she'd always been straight with me. Then I tracked down Jillian, a financial advisor my boss had mentioned once. She worked out of a little office downtown, all glass and plants. I walked in, still in Leo's hoodie, Mark's leash in my pocket, and laid it out, my wife draining our account, me locked out. No idea what came next. Jillian listened, her pen tapping her notepad, then said, first, protect what's yours. New account, solo. Move your direct deposit. Then we figure out the rest. She didn't sugarcoat it, and I liked that. I opened a new account right there, transferred the last $200 from the joint one before Mira could touch it. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Driving back to Leo's, I felt a little lighter, like I was taking control, piece by piece. The old phone buzzed again in my pocket, and I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. More texts from Mira. Where's the money? You can't do this. Talk to me. I almost laughed. She thought I was the one who owed answers? No way. I turned it off, shoved it in the glove box. Leo was waiting when I got back, pizza on the table, Mark wagging his tail like it was a party. You good? Leo asked, sliding me a slice. Better, I said, and I meant it. That night, I sat on the couch, Mark sprawled across my lap, and thought about what Jillian said, protect what's yours. I'd been a fool, letting Mira and her family walk all over me, but not anymore. I dug through the folder from the safety deposit box, reading every line of the house deed. My name was on it, not hers. She'd never chipped in, just complained about the mortgage. That was something leverage, maybe. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but it felt good to have options. The pizza went cold as I kept digging, piecing together the last few years. Myra's late nights with friends, her sudden shopping sprees, the way she'd snap if I asked about money. It had been there, right in front of me, and I'd ignored it. Too tired, too trusting. But now my eyes were open. I scratched Mark's ears, his soft fur grounding me. We're done playing the fool, huh, buddy? He licked my hand, and I smiled, a real one, small but there. Tomorrow, I'd start pushing back. I didn't know how yet, but I'd figure it out. For now, I had a roof, a friend, a dog, and a little cash in my name. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone take it away. I woke up early, the couch springs digging into my back, Mark snores filling the quiet of Leo's apartment. My new phone sat on the coffee table, its screen dark, a fresh start I could control. The old one was still in the truck's glove box, buzzing with Myra's desperation, but I wasn't ready to face that yet. Today, I had a plan, simple, direct, no games. I needed answers, and I needed them from her. I grabbed the phone, typed fast, we need to talk. Starbucks. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I hit send before I could overthink it, then tossed it aside. Leo shuffled in, hair a mess, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You texting her? He asked, handing me one. Yeah, I said, taking a sip, the heat waking me up. Meeting tomorrow. Gotta sort this mess. He nodded, leaning against the wall. You sure you're ready? I wasn't, not really, but I couldn't keep hiding. Gotta be, I said. He didn't push, just grabbed his keys. Come on. Let's get you cleaned up. Can't face her looking like a bum. We spent the day getting me ready, new shirt from a thrift store, a quick haircut at a barber down the street. Mark tagged along, his tail wagging like it was an adventure. By night, I felt more like me, not the guy who'd frozen outside his own house, but someone who could stand tall. I barely slept, though, my mind racing with what I'd say, how she'd twist it. Morning came fast, and at 11:45, I pulled into the Starbucks lot, Mark in the back seat. My old phone charged and ready in my pocket. I walked in, ordered a black coffee, and took a corner table, my hands steady even if my gut wasn't. Noon hit, and the doors swung open. There she was, Mira, but not alone. Zane swaggered in behind her, Gordon and Beth trailing like a pack. My jaw tightened. I'd said alone, and she'd brought the whole circus. They spotted me, Mira leading the charge, her face a mix of nerves and defiance. She slid into the chair across from me, the others crowding around like bodyguards. Hey, she said, her voice too casual. You wanted to talk? I didn't smile, didn't play nice. I leaned forward, looked her dead in the eyes. Where's the money? Her mouth opened, then closed, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. What money? She said, but it was weak, a lie I could smell from across the table. I pulled the bank statements from my jacket, printouts I'd grabbed from Jillian's office, each transfer circled in red. I slid them over, slow, deliberate. This money. 9 grand. Where'd it go? Zane snorted, leaning on the table. You're paranoid, man. She didn't. I cut him off, my voice low but sharp. I'm not talking to you. Myra's eyes darted to the papers, then back to me. It's not what you think. I was just helping who? I pressed, not letting her squirm out. Zane? Your parents? Because it sure wasn't us. Gordon stepped in, his voice booming like he owned the place. Now listen, son, you don't get to accuse. I'm not your son, I said, staring him down. And I've got proof. I pulled out the old phone, the one I'd kept for this exact moment. I'd recorded that night, shaky video through the snow, Zane's voice clear as day, Freeze to death, useless idiot. Myra's laugh, sharp and cruel, ringing out. Their faces, lit by the warm glow of my house, grinning while I stood in the cold. I hit play, turned the volume up, let it fill the space. People at nearby tables glanced over, curious. Myra's face went pale. Zane's smirk faded. Beth's hand flew to her mouth. Gordon just glared, but I didn't flinch. The video ended, and I set the phone down, my eyes locked on Mira. Return the money in 48 hours, I said, calm but firm. Move out in 7 days. Start therapy if you want any chance of this surviving. Beth scoffed, loud and dramatic. You're ridiculous. Threatening us. I leaned in close, my voice a whisper just for Mira. I'm not bluffing. She stared at me, her eyes wide, like she was seeing me for the first time. Zane muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and walked out, leaving the statements on the table. Mark greeted me at the truck, his tail thumping against the seat, and I climbed in, my heart pounding but stead. I'd said what I needed to, laid it all out. No yelling, no begging, just facts and a line in the sand. Driving back to Leo's, I replayed it in my head. Myra's excuses crumbling, the way they'd tried to gang up on me and failed. That video, it was my ace, proof they couldn't deny. I'd caught them off guard, flipped the script. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling. Leo was waiting when I got back, tossing a tennis ball for Mark in the living room. How'd it go? He asked, eyeing me. Good, I said, dropping onto the couch. Laid it out. Gave her terms. He grinned. Attaboy. She bring the clowns? Yeah, didn't matter. I told him everything, the statements, the video, their faces when it played. He laughed, shaking his head. You're a badass man. They didn't see that coming. I smirked, maybe for the first time in days. It felt good, taking control, not just reacting. The old me would have folded, let them talk me down, but not now. I checked my new phone. No texts yet. She had 48 hours, and I meant it. If she didn't pay up, I'd call Jillian, see what legal steps came next. The house was mine. The deed proved it. She could fight, but I had evidence, money trails, that video. I wasn't scared anymore. Mark flopped beside me, his head in my lap, and I scratched his ears, the tension easing out of me. Tomorrow, I'd wait, see if she followed through. For now, I had this moment. Me, my dog, my friend, and a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my new phone buzzing on the coffee table, Mark's tail thumping against my leg as he stretched out on Leo's couch. The sun was barely up, a thin gray light sneaking through the blinds, and I rubbed my face, trying to shake off the restless sleep. Yesterday at Starbucks kept replaying in my head, Myra's pale face, Zane's muttered curses, the way I'd walked out with my head high. I'd given her 48 hours to return the money, 7 days to move out, and I meant every word. I grabbed the phone, expecting more excuses, but it was just one text from her. Money's back. We'll be out by Friday. Short, no fight, no drama. I checked the bank app, sure enough, $9,342 sat there, transferred overnight. My chest loosened a little, like I could breathe easier, but I wasn't celebrating yet. With her, there was always a catch. Leo stumbled out of his room, yawning, his hair sticking up like he'd lost a fight with his pillow. She pay up? He asked, grabbing a soda from the fridge. Yeah, I said, showing him the screen. And they're leaving by Friday. He raised an eyebrow. That was fast. You think she's serious? I shrugged. We'll see. Gotta check the house today. He nodded, popping the can open. I'll come with. Make sure they don't pull anything. An hour later, we were in his truck. Mark sprawled in the back, the road still patchy with snow but clear enough to drive. My stomach twisted as we pulled up to the house, our house, my house now. The curtains were drawn, no cars in the drive. I grabbed my keys, the ones that hadn't worked that night, and hesitated. What if they'd changed the locks again? But the deadbolt clicked open, and I stepped inside, Leo behind me, Mark sniffing the air like he was on a mission. It didn't look trashed, not like I'd feared. No broken glass, no holes in the walls. But it wasn't right either. My recliner, the one I'd saved up for, the one I loved, was shoved into a corner by the garage door, covered with a pile of old blankets. The living room shelves were bare, all our wedding photos gone, frames probably tossed or packed. The TV was still there, but the Xbox was unplugged, cords tangled like someone had yanked them out fast. I walked to the bedroom, my boots loud on the hardwood, and saw my clothes still in the closet, but her side was empty, hangers swinging, a few stray socks left behind. Leo poked around the kitchen, whistling low. They rearranged everything, man. Your coffee mugs are in the pantry now. I checked the office next, my gaming PC still on the desk, but when I booted it up, my heart sank. Every save file, hours of progress and games I'd played to unwind after long shifts deleted. Blank. Like I'd never been there. I clenched my fists, breathing slow, keeping the anger down. They hadn't just left. They'd erased me, piece by piece. Then I found it, taped to the fridge, a handwritten bill from Mira, 2 pages long, itemizing every dime she claimed she'd spent on us over the years. Groceries from 2019, gas for a trip in 2021, even emotional support with dollar signs next to it, like I owed her for putting up with me. It was ridiculous, petty, a final jab to twist the knife. Leo read it over my shoulder, laughing so hard he nearly choked. Emotional support? She's nuts. I didn't laugh. It stung, sure, but it also lit something in me. I grabbed my phone, snapped a photo of the letter, and posted it to my story. No caption, just the raw image. Let people see who she really was. Within minutes, comments rolled in friends, coworkers, even my cousin in Ohio. She's delusional. You're better off, bro. What a clown show. Savage, everyone, and it felt good, like a crowd cheering me on. I texted Mira, meet me tomorrow at Willow Park. Alone this time. No reply came, but I didn't care. She'd see it. Leo and I spent the day reclaiming the place, moving my recliner back to the living room, plugging in the Xbox, stacking her bill in a drawer for later, maybe for a lawyer if it came to that. Mark sniffed every corner, reclaiming his spot by the couch, his tail wagging like he approved. The house still felt off, echoes of her everywhere, but it was mine again, and that was a start. Driving back to Leo's that night, I kept thinking about the money, back in the account, sure, but it didn't erase what she'd done. $9,000 stolen slow, a betrayal stretched over months. And the house, rearranged like I was a guest they'd kicked out. It wasn't just spite, it was a message, you don't matter. But I did. I mattered to me now, and that's what kept me going. At Leo's, we ordered pizza, cracked open a couple beers, Mark begging for crust with those big eyes. You're winning, man, Leo said, clinking his bottle against mine. They're scrambling, and you're solid. I nodded, sipping slow. Feels like it. But tomorrow's the real test. He tilted his head. The park. Yeah, gotta hear her out, see if she's got anything left to say. He smirked. You're too nice, you know that? Maybe. But I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me, to close this chapter clean. That night, I lay on the couch, Mark curled up beside me, the house running through my mind. The recliner back where it belonged, the empty shelves, her stupid bill. It wasn't about the stuff. It was about what it meant. She tried to rewrite our life, make me the villain, but I wasn't playing that role anymore. The comments on my story kept popping up, little bursts of support from people who'd seen enough. I didn't need her apology, didn't need her tears. I just needed to face her one more time, say what I had to, and walk away for good. Tomorrow, Willow Park. Alone. She'd better show up. I got to Willow Park early, the morning air crisp and sharp, the kind that bites your lungs a little when you breathe too deep. Mark stayed with Leo this time. I needed to do this alone, no distractions, just me and whatever Mira had left to say. The park was quiet, a few joggers huffing along the trails, their breath puffing out in white clouds, but the bench I picked was off the path, surrounded by bare trees and a frozen pond. I sat down, my hands in my pockets, the cold wood creaking under me. My new phone stayed silent, no texts, no calls. I told her to meet me here, alone, and part of me wondered if she'd show up at all. Yesterday's win, the money back, the house mine again felt solid. But this was different. This was the end, or at least I wanted it to be. At 10:02, I saw her black coat, scarf wrapped tight, walking slow like she wasn't sure she wanted to be here. No Zane, no Gordon, no Beth. Just her. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes red, her face softer than I'd seen in months. Hey, she said, her voice small. I nodded, didn't stand, didn't smile. Sit. She did, keeping space between us, her hands twisting in her lap. Before I could say a word, she started crying, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she said, choking it out. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I watched her, my jaw tight, waiting. Sorry was just a word. I needed more. She wiped her face, took a shaky breath. It was Zane's idea. He said it'd be funny, A loyalty test or something. Lock you out, see if you'd fight to come back. I didn't think you'd stay out all night. I didn't think you'd leave. I stared at her, the words sinking in slow, like mud settling in a puddle. A test? That's what she called it? You laughed, I said, my voice low, steady. I saw you. Heard you. Zane told me to freeze to death, and you high-fived him. Her head dropped, her shoulders shaking. I know. I know how it looked. I was stupid, caught up in it. They egged me on as Zane, Mom, Dad. It felt like a game until it wasn't. I leaned back, the bench cold against my spine. A game. You locked me out in a blizzard, Mira. I worked a double shift, came home dead on my feet, and you turned it into a game. She flinched, like I'd hit her, but I didn't stop. You stole $9 grand. Months of my pay, gone. Was that a game too? She shook her head fast. No, that was... I needed it. For them. Dad's business was tanking. Zane kept asking for loans. I thought I could fix it, pay you back before you noticed. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Couldn't help it. Pay me back? With what? My money. Her tears kept coming, but I wasn't softening. Not this time. She looked up, her eyes pleading. I messed up. I see that now. I never wanted to lose you. That's when she said it, the thing that cut deeper than the cold ever had. I picked you because you were easy to manage. You never said no when I cried. I thought I could keep you under control. My chest tightened, a hot spike of hurt and anger twisting inside me. Easy to manage. That's what I'd been to her, a pushover, a tool, someone she could play with tears and guilt. 6 years, and that's what she saw. I leaned forward, my elbows on my knees, staring at the ground, letting it sink in. You thought wrong, I said finally, my voice quiet but hard. I'm not your puppet anymore. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back, stood up slow. I want a divorce. The words came out clean, no hesitation, and they felt right, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. Her face crumpled, more tears, but she didn't argue, didn't scream. Okay, she whispered. Can we talk again? Later. I looked at her, really looked, her messy hair, her wet cheeks, the woman I loved once. Maybe, I said, but I didn't mean it. Take care of yourself, Mira. I turned and walked away, my boots crunching on the frost-covered grass, the park stretching out wide and empty around me. My breath puffed out in front of me, steady now, no more shaking. Her words echoed in my head, easy to manage, never said no. They stung, sure, but they also lit a fire. I'd been that guy soft, trusting, letting her and her family walk all over me. Not anymore. I got back to Leo's truck, climbed in, and sat there a minute, hands on the wheel, staring at the dashboard. Mark wasn't there, but I could picture him loyal, steady, waiting for me. Like Leo. Like the life I was building now. Myra's cry for another talk lingered, but I shoved it aside. She'd had her chance, years of chances, and she'd blown it. That loyalty test wasn't just a prank, it was the truth coming out. She didn't love me, not the way I'd loved her. She loved controlling me, and when I stopped bending, she didn't know what to do. Driving back, the road felt clearer, like the snow had melted off more than just the pavement. I didn't need her tears, didn't need her excuses. Divorce wasn't just an end, it was a start. I'd call Jillian tomorrow, get the papers moving, make it real. The house was mine, the money was back, and I had people in my corner. Leo, Mark, even the folks online tearing into her stupid bill. I pulled into Leo's lot, the engine ticking as it cooled, and let out a long breath. The park faded behind me, Myra's voice with it. I wasn't mad anymore, not like before. I was done. Done with her games, her family, her lies. I grabbed my phone, texted Leo, "It's over. Divorce is on." He replied fast, "Good call. Pizza tonight." I smiled, small but real. "Yeah, bring Mark." I stepped out, the air cold but not biting, and headed inside. The old me, the one she'd managed, was gone, left on that bench with her tears. This me? He was just getting started. I woke up on Leo's couch with Mark sprawled across my legs, his snores rumbling through the quiet morning. The park meeting with Mira still hung in my head. Her tears, her confession, that easy-to-manage line cutting deeper than I'd let on. Divorce was the right call, no doubt about it, but it left me restless, like I needed to do more than just walk away. I grabbed my coffee. Leo had left a pot brewing before heading to work, and sat there, staring at the steam curling up, my mind spinning. She'd chosen me because I was weak to her, a pushover she could steer. And her family? They'd cheered her on. Used me up, tossed me out. I wasn't just done with her, I was done with all of them. That's when I thought of Cora, Myra's aunt, the black sheep who'd been shoved out years ago. I'd met her once at a barbecue. Quiet but sharp, the kind of woman who didn't take crap. Myra's parents had cut her off after some blowout nobody talked about, but I remembered her saying, "They'll bleed you dry if you let them." She'd seen it coming. I found her number in an old text thread. Happy birthday from 2 years back, short and simple. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I hid it, holding my breath as it rang. She picked up on the third, her voice rough but warm. "Well, hell, if it isn't the husband. What's up?" I didn't waste time. "Hey, Cora. It's a mess. Mira locked me out, stole money, laughed about it with Zane and the rest. I'm divorcing her. Need to talk." She didn't gasp or fuss, just a low, "Huh, took you long enough. Where you at?" I gave her Leo's address, and she said, "Be there in an hour. Bring coffee." True to her word, she rolled up in a beat-up Subaru, gray hair pulled back, a flannel shirt hanging loose over jeans. I met her outside with Mark, a mug in hand, and she took it with a nod. "Dog's cute," she said, scratching his ears. "Let's walk." We headed down the block, Mark sniffing every bush, the cold air keeping me sharp. I told her everything. The blizzard night, the money, the Starbucks showdown, the park. She listened, sipping her coffee, her face hard but not surprised. When I finished, she stopped, turned to me. "They did the same to me. Used me up, then dumped me when I called it out. Gordon's a leech, Beth's his cheerleader, Zane's a spoiled punk. Mira? She's their puppet till she's not." I nodded, the pieces clicking. She said it was a loyalty test. Said she picked me 'cause I was easy to manage. Cora snorted, a rough laugh. "Loyalty test, my ass. They test you till you break, then blame you for it." I lent Gordon cash for his business, never saw it back. Zane crashed my car, laughed it off. Beth told me I was selfish for asking them to pay up. Mira was a kid then, but she learned fast. We kept walking, the street quiet, Mark tugging at the leash. Cora's stories piled up, cousins cheated out of inheritance, friends ghosted after loans, a whole family built on taking. "They're a machine," she said. "Suck you dry, then act like you're the problem." I kicked a rock, watching it skitter across the pavement. "I'm done being their fuel." She grinned, her eyes glinting. "Good. Let's hit 'em harder. Crash their family dinner." I stopped, Mark pulling at the leash. "What?" "Monthly thing at Gordon's parents' place," she said. "Whole clan shows up, preens over their bullshit. We go in, tell the truth, watch 'em squirm. I've been banned since '09, but you're still fresh meat. They won't expect it." My pulse kicked up, a mix of nerves and something else, excitement. "Maybe. You think it'll work?" "Won't fix him," she said, "but it'll bury their lies." "You in?" I thought about it. Myra's tears, Zane's smirk, the way they'd laughed while I froze. Yeah, I was in. When? "Tomorrow night. 7. Dress nice, but not too nice. Bring that video." We finished the loop back to Leo's, Mark panting happy between us. Cora drained her mug, handed it back. "See you then. Don't chicken out." She drove off, and I stood there, the plan sinking in. Crashing their dinner wasn't just revenge, it was justice, a chance to shove their crap back in their faces. I went inside, texted Leo, "Big move tomorrow. Need you there." He shot back, "Hell yeah. What's the play?" I filled him in, and he was all for it, promising to watch Mark and back me up if it got messy. The rest of the day, I prepped, charged the old phone, made sure the video was clear, even dug out a decent shirt from Leo's closet. My hands shook a little, but it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline, the kind that comes when you're about to take a swing at something bigger than you. That night, I lay on the couch, Mark curled up close, the house quiet except for his breathing. I kept seeing Gordon's smug grin, Beth's scoff, Zane's beer raised like a toast to my misery. Myra's voice, easy to manage, looped in my head, but it didn't hurt as much now. It fueled me. Cora was right. They were a family of ghosts, haunting anyone dumb enough to trust them. I'd been that guy, but no more. Tomorrow, we'd walk in, me and Cora, and rip the mask off. Not just for me, for her, for everyone they'd screwed over. I pictured it. The table full of their fake smiles, the food going cold as that video played, their excuses falling apart. It wouldn't change them. Leeches don't grow hearts, but it'd show them I wasn't their prey anymore. I scratched Mark's ears, his warmth steadying me. "We're gonna bury him, buddy," I muttered. He licked my hand, and I closed my eyes, the plan locked in. Tomorrow night, 7 sharp. No backing down. I spent the day before the dinner on edge, my stomach knotted tight, but my mind sharp. Cora's plan, crashing the family dinner, was bold, maybe crazy, but it felt right. I'd had enough of Myra's clan hiding behind their smirks and lies, and this was my shot to call them out, loud and public. Leo was in too, promising to keep Mark safe and meet me after if things went south. I ironed the shirt I'd borrowed from him, a plain blue button-up, nothing fancy, and made sure the old phone was charged, that video ready to roll. Zane's voice, Myra's laugh, all caught clear as day. It wasn't just evidence, it was a weapon, and I was ready to use it. Cora pulled up at 6, her Subaru rattling like it might not make the trip. I climbed in, the phone in my pocket, my hands steady despite the buzz in my chest. She glanced at me, her eyes glinting. You look like you're going to a funeral. Good. Let's bury him. We drove to Gordon's parents' place, a big, old house on the edge of town, all brick and windows, the kind that screams money even if it's fake. Cars lined the drive, lights glowing inside, laughter spilling out. The whole crew was there, just like Cora said. We parked a block away, walked up slow, her boots crunching on the gravel, my breath puffing in the cold. Follow my lead, she said. They'll try to shut us down fast. Don't let him. I nodded, my jaw tight. We didn't knock, just pushed the door open and stepped in. The room went dead quiet, forks hovering over plates, eyes swinging to us like we'd lit a fuse. Gordon stood first, his face red, Beth right behind him, her lips pursed. Zane smirked from the far end, beer in hand, but it faltered when he saw Cora. Mira was there too, mid-bite, her eyes wide, a napkin crumpled in her fist. What the hell are you doing here? Gordon barked, stepping forward. Cora grinned, sharp and fearless. Came to say hi. Missed you too, Gordy. I didn't wait. I pulled out the phone, hit play, and turned the volume up. Zane's voice boomed out. Freeze to death. Useless idiot. Myra's laugh followed, bright and cruel, the high five crackling through the speaker. Heads turned, whispers starting, Gordon's parents, old and stern at the head of the table, frowning deep. I let it run, every second sinking in, then stopped it and held the phone up. That's what you did, I said, my voice steady, loud enough for the whole room. Locked me out in a blizzard. Laughed about it. Stole $9 grand from me too. Beth scoffed, loud and fake. That's ridiculous. Cora cut her off, stepping forward. Shut it, Beth. I've got my own story. Gordon borrowed $5 grand from me in '07. Business emergency, he said. Never paid a dime back. Zane totaled my car, laughed in my face. You all blacklisted me when I wouldn't take it quiet. The room shifted. Uncles, cousins, a few faces I didn't know, all looking uneasy now. Uncle Dean, a quiet guy with a beard, cleared his throat. They did me too, he said slow. Promised me a cut of some deal. Took my money, cut me out. Cousin Elise, young and nervous, piped up next. Zane borrowed my rent cash last year. Said I'd get it back. Never did. It was like a dam breaking, stories spilling out, heads nodding, the perfect family picture cracking. Zane stood, his chair scraping loud. This is bullshit. His girlfriend Kayla grabbed his arm, her voice sharp. Sit down, Zane. I'm done with this. I want to ride home with him. She pointed at me, her eyes hard. I blinked, surprised, but nodded. Mira snapped then, stood up fast, her face red, and threw her phone at Gordon. It hit his chest, clattered to the floor. I'm done, she yelled. Done with you, done with this. I'm out. She stormed past me, didn't look back, the door slamming behind her. The room erupted, Gordon shouting, Beth crying, Zane swearing at Kayla, who just crossed her arms and stared him down. Cora leaned close, her voice low. That's our cue. Let's go. We slipped out, the chaos behind us, Kayla following quick. Outside, the cold hit hard, but I felt lighter, like I'd dropped a load I'd been carrying too long. Kayla climbed into the Subaru with us, quiet but firm. Thanks, she said. He's been a jerk forever. Just didn't see it till now. Cora drove, dropping her at a friend's place, then headed back to Leo's. You good? She asked me, her hands loose on the wheel. Yeah, I said, meaning it. That felt right. She smirked. Told you. They're exposed now. Can't hide from that. We pulled up to Leo's, and he was waiting outside with Mark, a grin splitting his face. Heard it went wild, he said, tossing Mark's leash to me. Spill it. I did. Every detail, from the silence when we walked into Myra's explosion, Kayla's break. Leo laughed, clapping my shoulder. You're a legend, man. They're done. I scratched Mark's ears, his tail thumping against my leg. The dinner replayed in my head, not just the yelling, but the shift. People speaking up, lies crumbling. Myra choosing herself wasn't my win, but it didn't matter. I'd chosen peace, and that was enough. Cora headed home, promising to call later, and I went inside with Leo and Mark. The old phone sat on the table, the video still there, but I didn't need it anymore. I'd said my piece, faced them down. The house was mine, the divorce was coming, and her family's grip was slipping, not just on me, but on everyone they'd used. I sank onto the couch, Mark curling up beside me, and let out a long breath. Peace wasn't loud, it was this, quiet and steady, with my dog and my friend and no more ghosts in the room. I woke up the next morning with a strange calm settling over me. Like the storm, both the blizzard and the mess with Myra's family had finally blown itself out. Mark was stretched across the couch, his head on my lap, snoring soft, and Leo's apartment felt more like home than my house ever had lately. The dinner crash with Cora still buzzed in my head, Zane's red face, Myra's phone hitting Gordon, Kayla walking out with us. It wasn't just chaos, it was a breaking point, and I'd come out the other side standing. I grabbed my coffee, the mug warm in my hands, and checked my phone. No text from Myra, no begging or threats, just quiet. The divorce papers were with Jillian now, moving fast, uncontested. She texted yesterday, she signed. It's done when you say. I'd say it soon, but today, I wanted something else to take back my space, my life. Leo stumbled in, rubbing his eyes. You're up early. What's the plan? Going to the house, I said, setting the mug down. Time to fix it up. Make it mine. He grinned, grabbing his keys. I'm in. Let's paint over her crap. We loaded Mark into the truck, stopped at a hardware store for paint, bright white for the walls, a deep blue for the trim, and hauled it back to my place. The house looked different pulling up, less like a trap now, more like a blank slate. Inside, it still carried her marks, empty shelves, my recliner scratched from being shoved around, but that was changing today. We started in the living room, tarps down, rollers dipping into cans. The white went on smooth, covering the beige she'd picked, the color I'd never liked but never fought. Leo blasted music from his phone, some old rock tunes, and Mark trotted around, sniffing the cans like he was supervising. You picking new furniture too? Leo asked, brushing paint across a wall. Yeah, I said, rolling over a corner. Got my eye on a couch, gray, comfy. No more of her stiff crap. He laughed. Good. That old one was like sitting on a board. Hours passed, the room transforming, light bouncing off the fresh paint. I ordered the couch online, big, soft, something I'd actually want to crash on, and added a new coffee table, simple wood, nothing fancy. By afternoon, we hit the kitchen, blue trim popping against the white, and I felt the house shift, like it was breathing again, mine in a way it hadn't been. Mark flopped on the floor, his tail wagging lazy, and I scratched his ears, paint speckling my hands. You like it, buddy? He licked my wrist, and I took that as a yes. Later, I drove to the shelter, a spur-of-the-moment thing. Mark needed a friend, and I wanted another piece of this new start. The place smelled like wet fur and bleach, dogs barking from their kennels. A worker led me to Duke, a shaggy old mutt, gray around the muzzle, eyes soft and tired. He's slow, but sweet, she said. Nobody's taken him yet. I crouched down, and he shuffled over, nudging my hand. That was it. He was mine. Back home, Mark sniffed him once, then licked his face, and Duke just flopped beside him, content. 2 dogs, my dogs, filling the space with something real. The next day, Cheryl, my old neighbor, stopped by, gray hair, warm smile, a loaf of banana bread in her hands. Heard you're back, she said, setting it on the counter. Myra kept me away, you know. Said I was nosy. I nodded, cutting a slice. She pushed a lot of people out. Glad you're here. We talked over coffee, her stories about the street, my plans for the house. She didn't pry about the divorce, just listened, and it felt good, normal, like I was part of something again. Leo swung by too, crashing on the new couch when it arrived, Duke and Mark piling on him like he was family. This is it, man, he said, grinning. Your spot now. Night fell, and I sat in my recliner, the room quiet except for the dogs breathing. The walls glowed white, the blue trim sharp, the shelves still empty, but waiting for me to fill them, not her, not us, just me. I didn't miss Myra, not the real her. Anyway, I missed the idea of her, The wife I'd thought she was, soft and kind in those early days. But that wasn't real, and this was my house, my dogs, my peace. I thought about the dinner, the way her family unraveled, Myra's break from them. It wasn't my victory, she'd chosen herself, not me, but I didn't need it to be. I'd chosen peace, and that was bigger. The paint smell lingered, fresh and clean, and I leaned back, Duke's head resting on my foot. Cheryl's bread sat half-eaten, Leo's laugh still echoed from earlier, and I felt it, roots growing, slow but strong. Mira had taken a lot, money, years, my trust, but she couldn't take this. I'd build it back, piece by piece, and it was mine. The divorce would finalize soon, a signature away, but it already felt done. I didn't need her ghost here anymore. I got up, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and stepped onto the porch. The night was cold, stars sharp above, and I sipped slow, the dogs following me out, their noses twitching in the air. No blizzard tonight, just quiet, the kind that settles in your bones and stays. I didn't have everything figured out, work, money, what came next, but I had enough. A house I liked, people who stuck around, 2 dogs who didn't care about my mistakes. That's what peace looked like, and I wasn't letting it go. I finished the beer, set the bottle down, and went back inside, Mark and Duke trailing me, their paws soft on the floor. The couch waited, the TV hummed when I flicked it on, and I sank in, the weight of the last week slipping off. This was my new paint, my new piece, and it fit me just right. I woke up a month to the day after that blizzard, the one that changed everything, with Mark and Duke sprawled across the bed, their warmth pinning me under the blankets. The house smelled like coffee. I'd set the pot to brew last night, and the morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and gold on the fresh white walls. It didn't feel like a year since I'd stood outside, locked out, snow up to my knees, Myra's laugh cutting through the cold. It felt like a lifetime, and I was glad for it. Today was different, though. Mira was coming by for her last box, the final thread of our old life snipped clean. I got up, the dogs grumbling as I shifted them, and pulled on a sweater, my boots scuffing the floor I'd scrubbed clean of her memory. The divorce was done, papers signed, no fight left in it. The house was mine, the paint new, the couch my own pick. I'd built something here, and she didn't fit anymore. At 10 sharp, her car rolled into the drive, a little hatchback I didn't recognize, not the SUV we'd shared. She stepped out, hair shorter, her coat loose, looking lighter somehow, like she'd shed something too. I opened the door, Mark and Duke sniffing the air behind me, and she gave a small wave. "Hey," she said, her voice quiet, no edge to it. "Hey," I said back, stepping aside. "Boxes in the hall." She nodded, walked in slow, her eyes flicking around, the white walls, the blue trim, Duke's chew toys scattered by the couch. "Looks different," she said, not sad, just noting it. "Yeah, feels better." She grabbed the box, clothes, a few books, nothing I'd miss, and set it by her feet, then turned to me. "I've been in therapy," she said, unprompted. "It's helping. I get it now, what I did, why. I'm sorry. Not to fix us, just because I mean it." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her. Her face was open, no tears this time, no play for pity. "Good," I said, and I meant it too. "Glad you're figuring it out." She smiled, faint but real. "Me too. Take care, okay. You too." She picked up the box, headed out, and I didn't stop her. The door clicked shut, her car purred away, and that was it, the last of her, gone quiet and clean. I stood there a minute, Mark nudging my leg, Duke chewing his tail like nothing had happened. It didn't hurt, didn't sting. It just was, and I was okay with that. I forgave her, not for her, but for me. Bridges burn once, and I wasn't rebuilding this one. I grabbed my coffee, still hot, and sank into the couch, the dogs piling on like they owned the place. Outside, snow started falling, light flakes dusting the yard, and I watched it through the window, warm inside. Safe. Mark climbed into my lap, his big head heavy, and I scratched his ears, thinking back to that night a month ago. The cold, the lockout, Zane's voice, her laugh. It had broken me then, shattered the man I'd been. But it didn't just take a marriage. It took the guy who'd let it happen, the one who'd been too far, stayed too quiet. And I didn't want him back. I sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me, and looked around. The house was mine now, recliner in its spot, shelves filling slow with my books, my games, my life. Duke flopped beside me, his lazy grunt making me smile. Cheryl's banana bread sat on the counter from her last visit. Leo's dumb jokes still echoed from his crash here last weekend. This was what I'd built, not just walls, but a place that held me up. The snow kept falling, thicker now, blanketing the world outside, but it didn't touch me here. I flicked on the TV, some old movie playing low, and settled in, the dogs breathing steady against me. That night in the blizzard, I'd lost more than I'd known, trust, love, years, but I'd found something too. Me. The guy who walked away, who faced them down at that dinner, who painted over the past and made it his. Myra's apology didn't change that. It didn't need to. I checked my phone, text from Leo. Beer tonight? Cheryl. Made cookies, dropping by. Simple stuff, real stuff. I typed back yes to both, set it down, and leaned back, the couch soft under me. The old me would have clung to Myra's sorry, tried to fix it. But this me? He let it go, let her go, and kept what mattered. The day stretched out easy, coffee turned to lunch, a walk with the dogs through the snow, their paws kicking up flakes. I didn't think about her much after she left. Didn't need to. Therapy might have lightened her, but this, my house, my peace, lightened me. Night came, and Leo showed up with a six-pack, Cheryl with a tin of cookies, the dogs going nuts at the company. We sat around, laughing at nothing, the snow piling up outside, and it hit me. This was it. Not a finish line, but a start that kept going. The blizzard night was a scar, sure, but it had healed into something stronger. I didn't miss the old me, didn't miss her. I had this, and it was enough. Leo clinked his bottle against mine, Cheryl fed Duke a crumb, and Mark snored loud on the rug. The TV flickered, the fire I'd lit crackled, and I watched the snow fall, safe inside. Never again, I thought, not her, not them, not that version of me. I was here, warm, whole, and that's where I'd stay. It was supposed to be a celebratory dinner. My wife Serena had just made partner at Lockridge and Crane, the high-powered corporate law firm she worshipped like a religion. She'd worked late nights, skipped vacations, and missed birthdays just to get that fancy corner office. Tonight was her victory lap, and she'd invited her whole family to bask in the glow. The place was one of those modern steakhouses downtown where the wine list was longer than the menu, and everyone looked like they belonged in a glossy magazine. Serena had picked the table near the big window, the one with a view of the skyline, her skyline, and she was already holding court by the time I arrived. Her father, Raymond, was there, his gray hair perfectly parted and his navy blazer sharp as ever. He'd been a senator before retiring to a boardroom and a second marriage. Next to him, her mother Francine swirled her wine like it held the answers to the universe. She'd always been polite, but there was a glassy quality to her kindness, like she was performing even when no one was watching. Camille, Serena's younger sister, had flown in from LA just to be here. She was the free spirit, the yoga instructor with 1 million Instagram followers and a wardrobe that looked stolen from a Coachella ad. Serena's smile was electric as she made her toast. I just made partner, she beamed, raising her glass. While my husband is just a plumber. Everyone laughed. Even Camille, who'd never worked a day in her life, let out this high-pitched giggle that made my stomach clench. I looked at Serena, but she didn't see me. She saw the version of me she'd crafted, the simple husband with the blue-collar job that gave her story texture. She loved to tell people I was a plumber, like it made her success more impressive by comparison. I forced a smile, but it felt brittle. I clinked my glass with hers and took a sip of water, letting the burn of disappointment settle into my chest. Serena had always loved the narrative. Micah, the guy who fixes pipes, she'd say at parties, her tone dripping with affectionate condescension. I'd laugh it off because it was easier than explaining the truth. I didn't mind the work boots or the wrench in my trunk. I'd always believed there was dignity in every job, but I also knew the world didn't see it that way. The waiter came around with a tray of appetizers. I reached for a shrimp skewer, but my appetite had evaporated. I was too busy watching Serena's eyes shine in the candlelight as she accepted her father's compliments and her mother's praise. "You've always been the smart one," Francine said, her smile stretching tight as a drum. "We knew you'd outgrow all this." She didn't look at me when she said it. I wondered if Serena had told her about the times I'd picked up the slack when she was too exhausted to cook or the nights I'd rubbed her feet after she'd worked 12-hour days. Probably not. That wasn't part of the story. Camille scrolled her phone, showing Serena something that made them both laugh. I wanted to ask what it was, but I learned that sometimes it was better to let them have their bubble. Then Francine's phone buzzed. She picked it up, eyes narrowing, then widening. The blood drained from her face. "Serena," she said, her voice tight. Why is your husband's company valued at $1 billion in the Wall Street Journal? The room went silent. Even the clinking of silverware stopped. I felt every eye on me, even Serena's, wide and blinking. What's she talking about? Serena demanded, her tone sharp, like I'd betrayed some unspoken contract. I leaned back in my chair, letting the moment sink in. The truth had been hidden in plain sight, like a secret I'd tucked into the pocket of my work jeans. Francine thrust her phone across the table. The headline was there in bold print. Ironclad Systems' estimated valuation hits $1 billion amid acquisition rumors. My name wasn't in the headline, but my company's name was. I met Serena's stare, her glass still in midair, her mouth slightly open. Micah, she said, her voice trembling now. Is this true? I nodded once. Yeah, Ironclad is mine. A flicker of realization crossed her face. The timeline, the secrecy, the long hours I'd spent at the shop. She tried to find words, but I beat her to it. But I'm just a plumber, remember? Her glass clinked against the table as she set it down too hard. The room's air turned electric. Camille's phone was still glowing, a half-written caption abandoned. Raymond's face had gone the color of damp concrete. I could see his mind spinning with calculations and regrets. Francine's wineglass trembled in her hand. It was the first time in years I felt like the room was seeing me, the real me. Not the convenient story they'd written about me. Not the footnote to Serena's success. I was the guy who'd quietly built something while they'd been busy polishing their image of themselves. I didn't say another word. I just picked up my water glass and took a slow sip, letting the tension coil tighter around the table. Serena's eyes searched mine for something she didn't recognize. And in that moment, I saw the cracks in her confidence. The dinner had been hers. The celebration had been hers. But the truth was mine, and I'd let it sit there, waiting for the right time to shine. Maybe it wasn't polite. Maybe it wasn't fair. But it was real. And I'd learned long ago that real was better than any story. They didn't know I owned Ironclad Systems, a private B2B infrastructure company that developed AI pipeline diagnostics for municipal and industrial use. My name isn't public. I let my CTO handle all the press. Everyone just assumed I was the guy who fixes pipes, and that's exactly how I wanted it. Even Serena, who once claimed she loved every part of me, the ambition, the intellect, the stubborn streak, had no clue. She built her world on status and titles. Partner at Lockridge and Crane. That was her new identity. Me? I liked my world quieter. I liked the idea that my work was respected in ways that didn't need a title or a plaque on the wall. Ironclad Systems had grown out of a series of late nights at the local library while I was finishing my master's in fluid engineering. I'd been fascinated by the city's aging pipeline systems and the colossal waste that came from leaks, burst mains, and outdated detection methods. Most municipalities were bleeding money fixing problems after they'd already caused millions in damage. I saw a way to change that, so I started coding, sketching, dreaming. I'd built a prototype diagnostic tool that used AI and predictive analytics to flag weaknesses in pipe systems before they turned into emergencies. It wasn't glamorous, but it saved cities millions. By the time I had my first real contract, a small but forward-thinking water district in Pennsylvania, Serena had just started her first year at Lockridge and Crane. She was exhausted and overwhelmed, so I didn't burden her with the details of what I was building. I'd come home with dirt under my nails and a grin on my face, but she'd be buried in case files, so I'd just kiss her forehead and let her sleep. I kept going, slowly adding engineers and coders to the team. We grew by word of mouth, by delivering results that couldn't be denied. Our technology predicted 83% of urban pipe failures before they happened. The city of Philadelphia alone saved $12 million in 6 months because of Ironclad. But every time we visited her parents, I was the butt of polite jokes about fixing leaks and unclogging drains. Serena didn't correct them. At first, it amused me. I'd sip my drink, smile, and nod along. It was a kind of social camouflage. No one ever asked the plumber to donate to a cause or sit on a board or sponsor a gala. I could observe without being pulled into the endless game of appearances. And I was genuinely curious how people would treat me when they thought I had no power or influence. Spoiler alert, they failed the test. Her father, Raymond, loved to hold court about the stock market, about the political climate, about all the ways the world could be fixed if everyone would just listen to him. He'd look at me like I was the hired help, a nod to the American dream. Serena's blue-collar husband. He'd talk at me, not to me. Her mother, Francine, was more subtle. She'd ask about my day in a tone that suggested she already knew it was uninteresting. Camille. Well, Camille was usually too busy curating her next Instagram post to even notice I was in the room. Serena would pat my knee under the table, a silent apology, but it always felt like a warning. Don't ruin the image. Don't correct the story. Don't step out of place. So I didn't. I let them believe I was the plumber who'd lucked out and married up. Meanwhile, I met with my CTO and CFO in small conference rooms and ironed out licensing deals with water authorities that put seven-figure deposits into our account overnight. I built a company that employed brilliant engineers, coders, and field techs, people who'd grown up thinking their ideas didn't matter. I gave them purpose. And I gave them anonymity too, because Ironclad didn't need a flashy founder to get results. I was content to let the technology speak for itself. But sometimes, when I'd drive home from the lab at 2 in the morning, a warm cup of gas station coffee in the console, I'd think about Serena and how she'd stopped asking about my work altogether. Early on, she'd been curious. She'd ask questions about the technology, the goals, the big picture. But somewhere along the way, the answers stopped matching. She got so caught up in her own climb that she missed the fact I was building something too, something bigger than a corner office or a brass nameplate. I didn't mind, at least not at first. I'd watch her talk about becoming partner like it was the holy grail, and I'd smile and tell her she deserved it. Because she did. She worked hard, sacrificed weekends, turned herself inside out for that firm. But I was working too, just in a different way. And somewhere along the line, it stopped being we and started being her and the plumber. She didn't know I'd already signed deals with major cities across the East Coast. She didn't know we'd been approached by Praxium Holdings about a potential acquisition that would catapult Ironclad's value into the billions. She didn't know that the guy she'd been calling the guy who fixes pipes was on track to become one of the most quietly powerful players in the infrastructure sector. I never corrected her, partly because I wanted to see who she'd become when the money wasn't in front of her, and partly because I wanted to know how it felt to have the truth in my pocket like a secret weapon, not to hurt her, but to remind myself that I hadn't needed her approval to get here. When the Wall Street Journal article dropped, my CFO forwarded it with a one-line email. Looks like the cat's out of the bag. I stared at the headline, Ironclad Systems, the billion-dollar underground giant, and felt the weight of every family dinner where I'd played the part. I'd let them all think I was small so they could feel big. I'd let Serena build her story on top of me, brick by brick. And now, every one of those bricks had become part of the empire they'd never seen coming. The plumber. Just a plumber. I smiled. When I met Serena, I was in my final year of grad school, grinding out a master's in fluid engineering while juggling a half-dozen odd jobs to keep the lights on. I did plumbing work on the side, installing water heaters, unclogging drains, and fixing the kind of stuff no one wanted to talk about at dinner parties. I wasn't ashamed of it. I actually liked the problem solving, the tangible sense of fixing something that others thought was broken. It was honest work, and it paid the bills while I scribbled equations and built prototypes late into the night. Serena was a second-year associate at Lockridge and Crane then, with a smile that could break glass and an ambition that radiated from her like heat off asphalt. She'd come into the cafe where I was working part-time, a stack of legal pads under her arm, too preoccupied with case files to notice the coffee stains on my jeans. I'd liked that about her, the single-minded focus, the way she could dissect a contract like it was a puzzle she was determined to solve. She looked at me over her laptop, eyebrows arched. "What are you reading?" she'd asked, pointing to the engineering textbook next to my half-eaten bagel. That was how it started. She liked my curiosity. I liked her fire. I thought she saw the real me, the one who stayed up all night designing fluid dynamics models, the one who wanted to make cities better, safer, smarter. And at first, she did. We'd meet for quick dinners between shifts, talk about our dreams and the future. She said she liked my ambition, my drive. "You're going places," she'd say, tracing a finger along my jawline, her eyes bright with promise. "We'll be unstoppable together." But somewhere along the way, that narrative shifted. I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but I remember it felt like a slow fade, like watching the sunset in reverse. Maybe it was the night she brought me to the Lockridge and Crane holiday party and introduced me as Micah, he's a plumber. The way she said it, like it was a punchline, a sweet little anecdote to show she wasn't shallow, that she could love someone who didn't wear a tie to work. I'd smiled, of course. I'd played along. I told myself it didn't matter because I knew what I was building behind the scenes. But every time she repeated that joke, at dinners, at parties, in casual conversation, I felt a piece of me slip away. Like I'd become the role she needed me to play in the story she was telling herself. Serena, the brilliant corporate lawyer, with a simple, dependable husband who was easy to manage. You're so simple. So dependable, she'd said one night, her head resting on my shoulder after a long day. Like it was a compliment. Like it was a feature. I'd laughed, but it stuck with me. Simple. Dependable. Like a Labrador retriever. Like I'd been housebroken. Like she'd picked me out of a lineup of options because I'd never stray too far from her shadow. I used to laugh it off because I thought we were stronger than that. I thought she was just tired or stressed, or that the demands of her job had turned her sharper than she meant to be. But the jokes stopped being funny. They became the soundtrack of our marriage. Serena, the overachiever. Micah, the plumber who was easy to overlook. At first, I tried to remind her who I was. I'd mention a new project at work or drop hints about the contracts I was negotiating. But she'd glaze over, her eyes darting back to her phone, to emails from partners and messages from clients. She was too busy winning, and I was too busy letting her. I could have pushed back. I could have corrected her. But part of me wanted to see how far she'd go. I wanted to know if she'd ever look past the image she'd crafted, the convenient stories she'd wrapped around me like a comfortable coat. I wanted to know if she'd ever ask, Micah, what are you building? But she never did. She liked the version of me that made her look bigger by comparison. She liked the story where she was the success, and I was the background. Sometimes I'd watch her get ready for work in the morning, all crisp lines and perfect hair, and I'd wonder if she even remembered the guy she met in that cafe, the one with the coffee-stained jeans and the spark in his eye. The guy who wanted to change the world, one pipeline at a time. I never stopped working. While she posted office selfies with espresso cups and captions like Monday motivation, I was in the lab with my team, refining AI models that could predict pipe failures down to the street corner. While she was presenting to partners, I was negotiating with city councils and utility boards, signing deals that would change the way cities manage their infrastructure. I was building something real, something that would outlast 1,000 office promotions and 1,000,000 LinkedIn posts. But at the dinner table, at family parties, at the bar with her colleagues, I was just the plumber. And she never corrected them. She never gave me the benefit of the doubt. She never asked what was behind the quiet smile, the tired eyes. She didn't see the hours I put in after midnight, the sacrifices I made, the team I led. To her, I was simple, dependable, forgettable. It's funny how the people who claim to love you can be so blind. Or maybe it's not blindness at all. Maybe it's willful ignorance, a way to keep the story neat and clean, the hierarchy intact. Serena needed that, and I let her have it, because I thought it didn't matter. Because I thought she'd remember who I really was when it counted. Turns out I was wrong. While she posted office selfies with espresso in hand, I quietly built Ironclad with a small team of engineers and coders who believed in the vision even before the world started paying attention. I started with a tiny space, a one-room office with a shared bathroom and a flickering fluorescent light that made it look like the backdrop of a crime scene. But it was mine, and in those four walls, we built something the world didn't see coming. We were the underdogs, working through nights lit by vending machine glow and the hum of servers, drinking too much bad coffee and taking pride in our weird little AI models. We refined our diagnostics algorithm again and again until it was better than any competitors. Our software could predict up to 83% of urban pipe failures before they even happened. Imagine that, cities saving millions on repairs and water loss. But no one at Serena's dinner tables asked me about that. No one wanted to know about the hours I spent pitching our tech to local water authorities, or the phone calls to skeptical engineers who'd rather replace a pipe than listen to a guy in jeans talk about artificial intelligence. They just saw Serena's success, the partner's salary, the high heels that clicked with authority, and then they'd glance at me like I'd tagged along, some charity project she'd picked up at the shelter. At those dinners, Serena's father would go on about the stock market, how it was a real man's game, while her mother would sip her third glass of wine and talk about their family's legacy and politics. Like it was an inheritance she couldn't bear to share with someone who worked with his hands. Camille would post selfies, filtered to death, captioned, "Family time with the power couple," like I was some trophy she'd borrowed for the evening. And every time, Serena would smile and pat my knee under the table, as if that was all it took to keep me content. I started to see it, the way she liked the contrast. She was the high-powered attorney. I was the plumber. It gave her an edge at those dinner parties, made her look like the benevolent one, the star who didn't need to marry her equal because she was that good. But every day, while she curated her brand and worked those late hours, I was in meetings that could change the face of a city's infrastructure. I had contracts with the Department of Water Management and several high-level government agencies. We were revolutionizing how cities managed aging pipes. In Philadelphia, our tech had saved the city $12 million in 6 months. $12 million. That was real money, real impact. And yet, at her parents' house, I was the guy who fixed drains. I remember one night vividly. Her father, leaning back in his chair with a cigar in hand, looked at me and said, "So Micah, when are you going to get serious about your career? Serena's carrying the weight, you know." Serena laughed lightly, not even bothering to defend me. "Dad," she'd said, "Mike is fine. He likes what he does." She said it like I was a child who'd decided finger painting was a career choice. I felt the smile freeze on my face. That was the moment I realized that in their eyes, and maybe even in Serena's, I wasn't building anything. I was just a placeholder. A warm body at the dinner table. I played along because I wanted to see how long it would take before anyone noticed the cracks in their narrative. Spoiler alert, no one did. My team at Ironclad worked in silence, refining and scaling. We put up record numbers and started winning awards, ones with little logos that would have impressed Serena's father if he'd ever cared to ask. But I didn't share the articles. I didn't bring them home. I didn't brag. Because I was watching. Watching how everyone treated the man they thought I was. The man who'd married up. The man who should be grateful to be at the table. It's funny how people talk about wanting authenticity, but they can't handle it when it shows up uninvited. I think that's why I kept my success a secret, not just from Serena, but from everyone. I wanted to see who loved me when there was nothing to gain. Spoiler alert, not many did. And every time I sat at that dinner table, a polite smile on my face, nodding along to talk of stock options and vacation homes, I wondered what would happen when the truth came out. When the headlines splashed across their screens and the plumber was suddenly worth more than all their fancy law degrees combined. I wondered how they'd react when the guy they'd pitted turned out to be the one holding the winning hand. I wondered if Serena would still smile the same way when she realized the person she'd married wasn't the narrative she'd sold to her friends. So I sat there, listening to her father's lectures on politics, her mother's bragging, Camille's shallow jokes. I let them talk about my little jobs while I signed multi-million-dollar contracts and negotiated government deals. And in those moments, I learned more than I ever did in any engineering class. People will believe whatever story you hand them, especially if it makes them feel bigger. It was the underestimation principle. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're small. Let them laugh. Because when the truth comes out, their surprise is the sweetest victory. So I sipped my water. I let them laugh. And I smiled. Because I knew the day was coming when the plumber would be the one they all wanted to meet. Serena started referring to me as utility class in front of her colleagues, and the first time she said it, I thought I'd misheard. We were at a rooftop cocktail event, one of those slick affairs where everyone wore tailored suits and sipped martinis they barely drank. The skyline stretched behind us, all glass and steel, and I was thinking about the latest contract Ironclad had signed with the city of Boston. Another $1 million deal that would take our pipeline diagnostic tech national. I planned to share that with Serena that night, maybe let her know just how far her plumber had come. But then she introduced me to her colleague Henry as utility class, and she didn't even blink. "He's the utility class," she said with a quick laugh. "Keeps things running." Henry smirked, and I felt the heat rise in my neck, but I swallowed it down and shook his hand. Utility class. Like I was a second-tier citizen in her world of polished boardrooms and manicured office plants. She said it lightly, like it was a compliment, like I was part of the system that made her high-powered life function. But I knew the subtext. I'd seen it enough times in her eyes when she scrolled through Instagram, liking photos of the real winners, while ignoring my latest team award. I'd felt it at family dinners when her father bragged about her wins and forgot I was even in the room. The utility class, someone who was there to support, not to lead. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just a joke. But the barbs started stacking up. She'd text me things like, "Can you swing by the dry cleaner on your way home?" Utility class hero. Like I was her assistant. Like I didn't have my own empire to run. The final straw came when she left me off the invitation to her firm's retreat in Aspen. We'd been planning to spend a weekend together, a rare chance to reconnect. I'd already rearranged meetings, rescheduled conference calls, Told my CTO I'd be offline. But 3 days before the trip, she looked at me across the dinner table and said, "I don't think you'll really fit in there, Micah. It's just lawyers, white shoe crowd. You'd be bored." She said it with that same glossy smile, the one that meant she'd already made the decision and was just giving me the courtesy of a heads up. I wanted to ask her if she'd ever been bored at my investor dinners, or the time she sat through my keynote at the water management conference, pretending to care. But the words died in my throat. I just nodded and said, "Sure. Enjoy yourself." Because I'd learned the hard way that in her world, I was background, an accessory, a neat addition to her narrative about balancing success and humility, the husband who didn't mind being underestimated. I went back to work, back to Ironclad, where my team and I were finalizing a breakthrough update that would revolutionize the way cities monitored their pipelines. We'd landed a contract with the Department of Water Management, a federal pilot program that would put our software into over 100 cities. It was the kind of deal that would make headlines, the kind that would put Ironclad on the map as an industry leader. But at home, I was the guy who'd hold Serena's coat at cocktail parties, the man she'd leave off the guest list when things got exclusive. One night, she came home late, her hair tousled from the wind, her eyes bright with adrenaline. "The retreat was amazing," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "I wish you'd been there." I wanted to ask her why she hadn't fought for me to come, why she'd let me be the one left out while she networked and charmed. But I didn't. I just smiled and asked how it went, and she launched into a story about the partners' dinner, about how everyone had laughed at her jokes and praised her presentation. I stood there, nodding, thinking about the deals I'd signed while she'd been gone. Thinking about how no one at that dinner had any idea who I really was. Maybe that's what finally broke me, realizing she didn't see me anymore, didn't want to. That she'd built a version of me she could carry around like a good luck charm, safe and predictable and small. That she'd started to believe her own PR. That night, after she went to bed, I pulled up the email from my CFO. Wall Street Journal was dropping a piece on Ironclad's latest valuation, $1 billion, with acquisition rumors swirling. I didn't feel pride. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt tired. Tired of being utility class. Tired of being background. Tired of waiting for someone else to see what I'd built. I could have told Serena then, could have shown her the article, could have made her look at me for the first time in months. But I didn't. I wanted to see what would happen if I stayed silent just a little longer. If she'd notice. Spoiler alert, she didn't. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek and grabbed her briefcase. "Have a good day, Micah," she said, her voice bright and oblivious. "Don't forget to pick up the dry cleaning." I watched her walk out the door, her heels clicking like gunshots in the hallway. I made a cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the email again. $1 billion valuation. My name in the fine print. The plumber she'd left off the guest list. I smiled to myself and thought, they'll all find out soon enough. And when they do, I'll be the one holding the invitation they all wanted. I had no plan for revenge. I had no plan at all. I was just tired. Tired of the looks, the dismissals, the polite laughter that rang in my ears every time Serena's colleagues or her family called me the plumber. It was easier that way, I told myself. Less confrontation. Less drama. Let them think they'd mapped me out. Let them keep building their house of illusions. But deep down, I was waiting for the moment when the truth would punch through the pretense like a hammer through glass. That moment came on a Thursday morning. My CFO forwarded an email flagged, high priority. A journalist from the Wall Street Journal had done a deep dive on Ironclad's latest deal with Praxium Holdings. The reporter had uncovered our pipeline diagnostic text track record, the 83% reduction in catastrophic failures, the $12 million saved in Philadelphia, the federal contracts pending approval. She'd pieced together the valuation numbers from investor calls, linked them to public records, and come up with a figure that made my stomach clench. Potential acquisition rumors. Ironclad Systems valued at over $1 billion. It was all there, laid out in black and white, with enough detail to light up every boardroom in the city. I leaned back in my chair and let the weight of it settle. For years, I'd built this company in the dark, deflecting questions, letting Serena's world believe I was just another guy with a wrench and a work van. Now the floodlights were about to hit, and I didn't know how I felt about that. I didn't panic. I didn't gloat. I didn't even tell my team there'd be time for that later. Instead, I did the one thing I hadn't done in months. I RSVP'd yes to Serena's family dinner on Saturday night. Serena had planned it weeks ago, a celebration of her promotion. Her mother had probably already ordered enough wine to drown a small village, and her father would have a toast ready, dripping with the kind of pride that always forgot to mention me. Camille would be there too, no doubt with a new set of Instagram filters ready to document every moment of Serena's ascent. I wondered what they'd all say when the Wall Street Journal hit the breakfast table that morning. Would they be proud? Ashamed? Embarrassed that they hadn't known the truth? Friday came, and the article dropped. Ironclad Systems, the billion-dollar plumber. I had to hand it to the journalist. She'd nailed the hook. It was catchy, easy to share. A plumber-turned-tech mogul who'd quietly built an empire while no one was looking. I could already see the headlines spinning across LinkedIn, the whispers at Serena's office. I'd spent so long hiding in plain sight that it felt almost surreal to see my name in print. Michael Landry, founder and CEO. I thought about calling Serena, thought about warning her. But then I remembered all the times she'd called me utility class and left me off her guest lists. I remembered the retreat in Aspen, the cocktail parties, the polite laughter, the tiny cuts that had piled up into a mountain. I decided she could read it the way everyone else would. Saturday night came, and I dressed like I always did. No suit, no tie, just jeans and a button-down shirt. The same Micah I'd always been, the one they dismissed. I wanted them to see him when the truth came out. I wanted them to realize that the man they'd underestimated was the same one who'd built something bigger than all their dinners and promotions combined. The house smelled like garlic and wine when I walked in. Serena's mother was in the kitchen, barking orders at the caterer. Her father was already at the head of the table, glass of scotch in hand, his voice filling the room with the kind of practiced authority that only politicians have. Camille was on the couch, phone in hand, her eyes glued to the screen. Serena greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek. Hey, Han. Thanks for coming. Her eyes were bright, her smile perfect. She had no idea. Dinner started like it always did. Her father gave a speech about Serena's achievements, about how proud they all were to have a daughter who'd made partner at Lockridge and Crane. Camille snapped photos. Francine dabbed her eyes with a cloth napkin. The room was full of laughter and clinking glasses, the sound of a family celebrating its star. Then Serena stood up, glass in hand. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for all of you, she said, her voice steady, the lawyer in her polished to perfection. It's been a long road, but I couldn't have done it without my family. And Micah, she paused, giving me that sweet, rehearsed smile. You've always been my rock. The room applauded. I forced a smile. That's when Francine's phone buzzed. She picked it up, eyes scanning the screen. Her smile faltered. Serena, she said, her voice trembling just a little. Why is your husband's company valued at $1 billion in the Wall Street Journal? The room went silent. Even the caterer stopped moving. All eyes turned to me. Serena's face froze. Micah, she asked, her voice cracking. Is that true? I nodded slowly. Yeah. Ironclad is mine. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I looked at her father. His glass hung in midair, forgotten. Camille's phone was now aimed at me, recording. I wondered what caption she'd use this time. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. But I'm just a plumber, I said, letting the words sink in. Remember? No one laughed. No one moved. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as the guy with the wrench, not as Serena's husband, but as the man who'd built something from nothing. The man they'd underestimated. And in that silence, I realized I didn't need revenge. The truth was enough. The dining room felt like a stage, every eye on me, every breath held as if the world had stopped spinning just to watch me stand there. Serena's father was the first to move, his hand trembling slightly as he set down his glass. Micah, is this some kind of joke? He asked, his voice brittle, like he was trying to convince himself that I couldn't possibly have outgrown his neatly drawn lines. I held his gaze, feeling years of quiet patience harden into something unbreakable. No joke, I said, my voice steady. Ironclad is mine. I built it. The contracts, the technology, the valuation, they're all real. Serena's lips moved like she was trying to find the right words, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted between me and the phone in Francine's hand, the one displaying the Wall Street Journal article that had shattered the story she'd told herself about me. I wondered how many times she'd repeated that story at cocktail parties and office events. Micah the plumber, the simple, dependable husband who never demanded too much attention. I wondered if she realized how fragile that story really was. I could feel the room shift, like tectonic plates grinding under the surface, the foundations of their assumptions starting to crack. Camille's phone was still pointed at me, her thumb hovering as if she couldn't decide whether to keep recording or put the damn thing down. I met her gaze and gave her a nod. Let her record. Let the world see what they'd missed. Serena's father leaned forward, his politician's smile gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. Why didn't you say anything? He asked, his tone somewhere between disbelief and accusation. I shrugged. I didn't think it mattered to you, I said. Every time I sat at this table, it was about Serena, about her achievements, her promotions. No one asked what I was building. No one cared. His mouth opened, then closed. Francine set her wineglass down with a soft clink that sounded like a confession. We didn't know, she whispered, her voice small, almost childlike. That's the point, I said, letting the words hang in the air. You didn't want to know. You liked the version of me that fit your story. The plumber. The guy who didn't make waves. Serena's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Micah, she started, her voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me? We're a team. We're supposed to share these things. I almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. A team. I repeated, my tone gentle but edged with the truth. Like when you left me off the Aspen retreat. Like when you told your colleagues I was utility class. Her face paled, her mouth trembling. Micah, but I cut her off. Serena, you didn't want a partner. You wanted a supporting character in the story of your success. I gave you that. I let you have your story because I wanted to see who you really were when you thought I had nothing to offer. The room was silent. Camille's phone was trembling now. I wondered if she was finally seeing her sister for who she really was. Serena's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know, she whispered. I believed her, and that was the saddest part. She hadn't known because she hadn't wanted to. Her father cleared his throat. Well, Micah, he said, forcing a smile that looked like it hurt. Now that we know the truth, perhaps we can work together. There's plenty of opportunities, political partnerships, business deals. I shook my head. That's not why I'm here, I said. I didn't come to make a deal. I came because I was tired of pretending. Francine reached across the table, her manicured hand trembling as she tried to bridge the gap. We always believed in you, Micah, she said, her voice syrupy. Your family. Family. The word tasted bitter. I looked at Serena, her tears rolling down her cheeks, her carefully crafted world crumbling around her. Micah, please, she said, her voice a plea now. Don't do this here. We can talk about it later. But I was done with later. I stood, pushing my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood like a final note. No, I said. We're talking about it now. Because for years, I let you define who I was to everyone you cared about. I let you use me as a prop in your story. I let you laugh at me. And I stayed silent because I wanted to believe that the woman I loved would see past the surface. But you didn't. Her sobs were quiet now, the kind that shake your whole body. I wondered if she was crying for me or for herself. I turned to the rest of the table, to Francine and Raymond and Camille. You all got the version of me you deserved, I said, my voice low but unwavering. But the truth was always there if you'd bothered to look. I took one last look at Serena, the woman I'd loved, the woman who'd taught me how small people could be. I'm leaving now, I said. Enjoy your dinner. And with that, I walked out of the dining room, leaving behind the applause that never came, the congratulations that never reached my ears. I felt lighter than I had in years. Because finally, they knew. And I didn't need to be their plumber anymore. Questions exploded from every corner of the room. Raymond's voice boomed with disbelief as he demanded, You built that? How? Why didn't you say anything? Francine's eyes were wide, darting between her husband and me as if I'd grown two heads and was about to sprout a third. Camille had stopped recording, her phone now resting in her trembling hands, her Instagram feed momentarily forgotten. And Serena just sat there, frozen, like she was trying to peace talk. I stood by the dining room door, my hands resting on the back of the chair I'd abandoned moments earlier. Yeah, I said, my voice calm. I built it. Ironclad started as an idea scribbled on a napkin in a diner during my last year of grad school. I saw a problem no one was fixing: aging water infrastructure, billions of gallons of water lost every year, and I decided to do something about it. Raymond's jaw clenched, his politician's mask slipping. He caught himself, but the word he'd almost used hung between us. Plumber. I'm what? I asked, my voice steady. A plumber. I let the words settle like dust in the silence. Yeah, I did plumbing work. I still do sometimes. I like the honesty in it, fixing things that are broken. But Ironclad? That's more than pipes. It's predictive analytics, AI, Technology that can save cities millions and prevent disasters. It's engineers, coders, field experts. It's the future. And it's mine. Serena's lips parted, but her voice came out as a whisper. Micah, why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret? I met her eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at me like I was the answer to every question she'd never asked. Because I wanted to know who loved me for me, I said. Not for a billion-dollar company. Not for headlines. Just for who I was when I walked through the door at the end of a long day. I swallowed, feeling the ache that had been building for years. Spoiler alert, you all failed the test. Her face crumpled, tears welling up, but I didn't let myself waver. I turned to Raymond, who was still sputtering, trying to reconcile the man he'd dismissed with the man who now owned a company bigger than any of his political ventures. You never asked me what I did, I said, my tone flat. You asked how my day was, like you already knew the answer was unimportant. His mouth opened, but no words came. I turned to Francine. You treated me like a curiosity, a hobby, a story to tell at brunch with your friends. But you never asked why I kept going back to the lab after midnight, why I spent weekends in meetings instead of on the golf course. Francine's hand shook, the wine glass trembling as if the truth might spill over the rim. Micah, we didn't know, she whispered, her voice small. We thought. You thought I was simple, I said, my voice sharpening. You thought I was the sidekick to Serena's story. But that's the thing about stories, they don't always go the way you expect. I felt the weight of the years pressing against my ribs, the dinners I'd sat through in silence, the jokes I'd laughed at to keep the peace. And I let it all go. Serena's voice cracked. Micah, please, I didn't mean. You didn't mean to see me, I said, cutting her off. You were too busy curating your life to realize there was more to me than the plumber who held your coat. I let the words hang, sharp and final. And that's on you. Raymond cleared his throat, his voice trembling with forced authority. Well, Micah, now that you've revealed yourself, perhaps we can discuss opportunities. There's a lot of potential here. I barked a laugh, cold and humorless. Opportunities? You think I need you? I shook my head. I built this without your approval, without your connections, without your money. I did it because I believed in the work. And I'm not interested in trading that in for a seat at your table. I've got my own table now. Camille, who had been silent through it all, finally spoke. So you really built all that? Her voice was small, like she was asking if the moon was real. I nodded once, and she looked down at her phone, her face pale. Maybe she was realizing that the likes and followers didn't mean much when real work was staring her in the face. I took a breath, feeling the room's weight press in. Look, I said, my tone softening, though not enough to let them off the hook. I didn't come here to rub your faces in it. I came because I was tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being the man you thought I was instead of the man I am. I looked at Serena, her face streaked with tears, her shoulders slumped. I wanted to know who loved me before the billion, and I got my answer tonight. Her mouth opened, a sob caught in her throat. Micah. I shook my head. I can't be who you need me to be anymore. I can't be small so you can be big. I felt the knot in my chest loosen, the weight I'd carried for too long finally lifting. I hope someday you understand that. The room was silent. Even the caterer, who had been hovering near the kitchen door, had disappeared. It was just us, and the truth, and the cold realization that nothing would ever be the same. I stood a little taller, my spine straight, my heart steady. Ironclad is mine, and so is my future. I turned and walked toward the door, the echoes of my footsteps a rhythm of freedom. For the first time in years, I felt like I was walking toward something real. As I reached the hallway, I heard Serena's voice, small and broken. Micah, please. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, and turned just enough to meet her gaze. You always wanted the man who would stand behind you, I said. Turns out, I was always the man who would stand on his own. And then I walked out, leaving behind the questions they'd never thought to ask, the assumptions they'd never bothered to challenge. I didn't need their validation. I had my own, and that was more than enough. Serena tried damage control before I'd even left the driveway. My phone buzzed with her name, 3 times in a row, but I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She'd already said enough with every polite laugh at my expense, every invitation she'd left me off, every time she'd called me utility class and expected me to smile. Now she wanted to talk. Now she wanted to work through it. I could imagine her scrambling, crafting the perfect apology, her mind spinning a web of justifications and rationalizations. But I was done. The next morning, I woke up to an email from her. Subject line, "We need to talk." I opened it, half expecting a full-on apology, but it was a carefully worded plea. "Micah, I'm sorry for the way things played out last night. I was blindsided, and I didn't handle it well. I just wish you told me about Ironclad. We could have leveraged your success, used it to build our future together. Let's sit down and talk this through. We're a team. Love, Serena." I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Leverage. That was the word that stuck in my throat. She saw my company, my blood and sweat, as a chess piece on her board. A tool for her image, for her brand. I thought of all the times I'd come home late from meetings, exhausted but wired with adrenaline from closing a deal, and she'd barely looked up from her phone. The times she'd called me utility class in front of her colleagues and never once corrected herself. That wasn't a team. That was a transaction. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened the envelope I'd been carrying around for weeks, a separation agreement I'd drawn up after the Aspen retreat, after I'd realized she saw me as an accessory instead of a partner. I'd never planned to use it. I'd kept hoping she'd see me, really see me, but she hadn't. That afternoon, I walked into the living room, and she was waiting, still in her tailored work dress, like she was about to deliver a closing argument. "Micah," she started, her voice trembling with rehearsed emotion, "we've been through so much together. Don't let this ruin us." I sat down, my heart steady. "Serena," I said quietly, "I love the woman I thought you were. I loved the nights you stayed up late studying for the bar, the way you'd light up when you talked about your first big case. But somewhere along the way, you stopped asking about me. You stopped caring about the man behind the work boots." Her lip quivered. "That's not fair." "It's perfectly fair," I cut in, my tone calm but unwavering. "Every time you called me just a plumber, every time you left me off the guest list, every time you told your colleagues I was utility class, you told me exactly who you thought I was." She blinked, tears welling in her eyes. "I was under pressure, my job." "Your job didn't force you to look down on me," I said. "That was your choice." I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. "This is a separation agreement. I signed it already. You can review it with your fancy lawyer friends." Her face crumpled, and she reached for my hand. "Micah, please, don't do this. We can fix it. We can be a team." I pulled my hand away gently. "No," I said. "You never wanted a team. You wanted a story. You wanted the narrative of the successful partner with the simple, dependable husband. That's not me anymore." Her tears came fast now, rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to, but you did," I said, standing up. "You meant every word, every laugh, every time you left me in the background." I looked down at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like I had to prove myself. I was done proving anything to her. She tried again, her voice breaking. "Please, Micah, don't throw this away." I shook my head. "You threw it away every time you chose your image over your husband." I turned and walked toward the door, but paused, looking back at her one last time. "You'll be fine, Serena. You've always known how to land on your feet. But I need to be somewhere I can breathe." She sobbed, but I didn't turn back. I walked out, the door closing behind me like the final page of a chapter I'd let drag on too long. Outside, the sun was just setting, painting the sky in colors that felt like freedom. I took a deep breath, the weight of years falling away from my shoulders. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like the man I'd always wanted to be, unapologetic, whole, seen. The phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know it was her. I silenced it and kept walking. Because some things, once broken, can't be put back together. And I was done letting her hold the pieces. 6 months later, Ironclad Systems was in a completely different league, no longer the quiet giant in the background, but a powerhouse that dominated the conversation in the infrastructure tech sector. We'd finalized the strategic merger with Praxium Holdings, bringing in a valuation north of $1.4 billion. It wasn't about the money, though. It was about the control. The creative freedom, the power to take the technology we'd developed and make it the gold standard for cities that had been struggling to modernize for decades. I still kept my original office in that same unremarkable building, with its chip paint and one humming vending machine that made the place feel like home. I tried the high-rise thing once, but the glass walls and corner offices just felt like a stage, something that would have made Serena's parents proud but left me cold. That morning, I sat in my office alone, watching the sun break over the skyline like a promise. My team was working out of our new expansion site on the other side of town, a state-of-the-art complex with all the bells and whistles. But I liked the quiet here, the way the walls still held the echoes of our first big wins and our late-night brainstorming sessions. My old work boots were propped under the desk, next to the same metal toolbox I'd carried for years. Some habits die hard. People called me a tech visionary now. Investors wanted my time, my insight, my approval. Every time I walked into a conference room, I saw the recognition in their eyes, the hush that settled over the room before I spoke. I hadn't changed. I still wore the same kind of jeans, still kept a wrench in the trunk of my car, just in case. Because deep down, I was still that guy who'd started this journey by fixing leaky pipes in basements that smelled like mold and old regrets. I'd never be too important to roll up my sleeves and do the work. I learned a lot in those 6 months about success, loyalty, and the fragile egos of people who only stand beside you when it suits them. Serena had tried everything. She'd called, texted, emailed. She'd shown up at my office once, all apologies and tears, her voice trembling as she insisted that she hadn't meant to belittle me, that she'd just gotten caught up in her own ambition. She'd said we could be a team again, that my success was her success. But I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done, just sorry that it had all blown up in her face. Sorry that her narrative had fallen apart in front of everyone she cared about. I'd listened. I'd let her speak. And then I told her the same thing I told myself the night I walked out of her parents' dining room. I couldn't be small so she could feel big. She hadn't loved the man I was. She loved the version she'd built for her own story, the one that made her look magnanimous and unstoppable. I didn't hate her for it. I just couldn't go back to being that man. Sometimes I still saw her on social media, glass of wine in hand, captioning her life with carefully chosen words, smiling like the world hadn't shifted under her feet. I wondered if she'd found a new character to fill the role I'd played. I hoped she did, because the truth was, I didn't wish her ill. I just wished her gone from the parts of me she tried to shape. Ironclad's new partnership had opened doors I'd only dreamed of. We were now in 17 cities, with more on the horizon. Our AI systems were revolutionizing water management, cutting costs, preventing disasters, and giving mayors and city planners data they'd never thought possible. Every time we signed a new contract, every time another city manager called to thank me, I felt that same spark I'd felt the first time I'd sketched out the idea on a napkin. One afternoon, as I was reviewing a new deployment plan for Chicago, my CTO, Ravi, knocked lightly and poked his head in. "Hey, boss," he said, his grin wide. "You're going to want to see this." He handed me his tablet, and there on the screen was a glossy feature in Business Insider, the plumber who built an empire. I laughed under my breath. The headline felt like an echo of that night at Serena's parents' house, when I'd stood there while the room went silent. "Look at this," Ravi said, excitement buzzing in his voice. "They're calling you the man who changed the way cities manage water forever." I read the article, nodding. It was flattering, but that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the final quote. Some journalist had dug up one of my old interviews where I'd said, "I'll never stop being a plumber at heart. I'll never stop getting my hands dirty." And I wouldn't, because that was who I was. The guy who fixed things. The guy who saw a problem and refused to look away. Ravi looked at me, his grin fading a little as he caught the expression on my face. "You okay, boss?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." And I was. That evening, I packed up my bag and headed out. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky streaked with pink and gold. I took the long way home, driving through the neighborhoods where I'd once done small plumbing jobs, the streets that had taught me how to navigate more than just pipes, how to navigate people, how to see past the surface. At a red light, I glanced at my rearview mirror and caught a glimpse of my reflection, a man in his late 30s, a little older, a little wiser, a lot stronger than the guy who'd stood beside Serena while she called him utility class. I didn't need anyone to tell me my worth anymore. I'd written that story myself, and it didn't need anyone else's approval. When I got home, I kicked off my boots and set my toolbox by the door. Some habits, like I said, die hard. I walked into the kitchen, made a simple dinner, and sat down with a beer in my hand. The house was quiet, and for the first time in years, that felt good. Later that night, I took a walk outside. The stars were bright, scattered across the sky like shattered glass. I thought about the road I'd traveled, the moments when I'd felt small, the nights I'd wondered if I was enough. I thought about Serena, about the way she'd tried to mold me into something that fit her narrative, and about the way I'd finally broken free. People called me a tech visionary now, a disruptor, a game changer. But in my bones, I was still the same guy with a wrench in his hand, still the same man who believed in fixing things. I just learned that sometimes the thing that needs fixing most is the way people see you, and the way you see yourself. I smiled to myself as I turned back toward the house. Just a plumber, I thought. The man who built an empire while everyone else was looking the other way. And that was enough. Because I didn't need Serena's approval. I didn't need her father's praise or her mother's polite smile. I had my own success, built with my own hands, on my own terms. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. I didn't know what the future would hold, more cities, more contracts, more headlines, maybe. But I knew one thing for certain, I'd face it on my own terms, with my boots on and my head held high. Because that's who I'd always been. Just a plumber. The man who never stopped fixing things.